Chapter 26. Everything is free. When the pavilion master of the 10,000 medicine pavilion said this, Xiaoyan could not help but open her mouth slightly. In her impression, the pavilion master of the 10,000 medicine pavilion had never been so generous. Even if her father came to buy medicinal herbs, the middle-aged man would at most give him a discount. Now, the pavilion master of the 10,000 medicine pavilion actually made such a decision in the face of a young man whom he had not met a few hours ago. What was written on that thin piece of paper? Young friend, don't worry. The 10,000 medicine pavilion will definitely take whatever you need. Every one of them will be of the highest quality, even a cauldron. The pavilion master of the 10,000 medicine pavilion was so excited that his face was flushed red. The memory of his son being taught a lesson by Tianyang had long flown out of his mind. He was somewhat disappointed in his son's failure to live up to his expectations. His son looked much older than this young man, but in the end, the difference was so huge. I didn't expect that an outer disciple of the Lingyun sect would be so powerful. How powerful is the Lingyun sect? Could it be that the Lingyun sect, which was gradually declining, has ushered in a revival? The pavilion master of the 10,000 medicine pavilion secretly thought to himself as he looked at the young man in front of him who had an unfathomable smile on his face. Then, he immediately quickened his pace and walked directly to the storehouse of medicinal herbs. In a short while, all the medicinal herbs that Tianyang needed were all packed into bags. As if afraid that Tianyang would forget to count them, each medicinal herb was specially wrapped in another craft leather bag. Even the craft leather bag itself had been tanned for a long time, so it would not affect the medicinal herbs at all. It had to be said that the pavilion master of the 10,000 medicine pavilion had put in a lot of effort for this semi-finished version of the Qi revitalizing pill formula. As for the cauldron, the pavilion master of the 10,000 medicine pavilion painfully gave a dark red cauldron to Tianyang. Tianyang's relaxed attitude after receiving it made the pavilion master of the 10,000 medicine pavilion secretly shocked. Forget about the medicinal herbs, some fruits, flowers, and the like wouldn't be too heavy. However, this pill cauldron was made of solid and tough metal. Even the pavilion master of the 10,000 drug pavilion would struggle to hold it. But Tianyang looked effortless. Could it be that this young man was born with superhuman strength? Thinking of this, the 10,000 drug pavilion master's expression became a little strange. His cultivation could directly suppress his son, and it was not difficult for him to take out an elixir recipe. His physical strength could also easily catch this heavy alchemy cauldron. What else could this mysterious young man not do? If Tianyang were to hear the thoughts of the pavilion master, he would not know whether to laugh or cry. Innate divine strength? He was born weak, and his strength was about the same. His body was really too weak. It was only because he had slightly cultivated the 9-tempered dragon body during the journey that he had his current strength. Moreover, Tianyang's previous life was not purely about fighting. He also had a good understanding of how to use his strength. Just now, he caught this alchemy cauldron not only because of his strength, but also because of his skill. After all, before he had obtained thousands of magical beast blood essences, the first refining of the 9-tempered dragon body could not give Tianyang much tyrannical physical strength. These medicinal herbs, not including the alchemy cauldron, are worth hundreds of thousands of gold coins. Including the alchemy cauldron, the value is more than 1,000,000 gold coins. However, this time, the fee that the 10,000 drug pavilion will charge you is 0. The pavilion master of the myriad medicine pavilion chuckled. Upon hearing this, Tianyang also smiled slightly. He had exchanged an item that was worth millions for an incomplete grade 1 pill formula that he had treated as a piece of scrap paper. For Tianyang, this was a huge profit. However, for the pavilion master of the 10,000 drug pavilion, elixir recipes were extremely rare and even supreme. With this elixir recipe, although he might not be able to refine the Qi revitalization pill, he could still use its value to a level that satisfied him. Therefore, this transaction was actually a win-win situation. By the way, I just made a deal with you, but I still don't know your name. Seeing Tianyang show signs of leaving after completing the transaction, the pavilion master of the 10,000 drug pavilion immediately became anxious. How could he let such a genius go so easily? If he let him go this time, he didn't know when he would be able to meet him again. I am the pavilion master of the 10,000 drug pavilion, Xiao Tian. May I know your name, young friend? Hearing this, Tianyang stopped in his tracks and looked at the middle-aged man strangely. Why did he ask for his name when he was just making a deal? However, Tianyang had a good impression of this sensible shopkeeper. It was just that his son was a bit of a jerk, but that level of existence was not enough to make the Tianji Sword Emperor pay attention to him. My name is Tianyang, Tianyang said lightly, but these 4 words burst out with an unparalleled heroic spirit. Hearing these 4 words, Xiao Tian even felt that the young man in front of him was a supreme emperor, a young divine king whose cultivation and strength were far above his. The next moment, as Tianyang's voice fell, that kind of feeling suddenly disappeared. It came quickly and left quickly. This speed even made Xiao Tian feel that he was hallucinating. So it's young friend Tianyang. This name is really extraordinary. Only a genius like you can suppress the domineering aura of this name, Xiao Tian said with a smile. Xiao Tian said with a smile. His flattery left no trace. However, there was nothing to be embarrassed about. For someone like Tianyang, who could casually take out a first-grade pill formula, flattery was a piece of cake. Hearing this, even the Tianji Sword Emperor could not help but feel a little embarrassed. Then, Tianyang changed the topic and said, May I know why Pavilion Master Xiao asked me to stay? Hearing this, Xiao Tian was overjoyed. Finally, the topic was brought up in this direction. Then his face became serious, and he said, Young friend Tianyang, as you can see, although my 10,000 drug pavilion is the largest pharmacy in town, not many people visit it. In addition to the uniqueness of the pharmacy itself, the lack of medicinal herbs is another reason. Therefore, our 10,000 drug pavilion has decided to organize a herb gathering team to go to the fearsome Beast Mountain range to collect medicinal herbs. Most of the members are ready. I also hope that young friend Tianyang can join this herb gathering team. Xiao Tian said seriously. With young friend Tianyang's talent, you can definitely achieve extraordinary results. Moreover, in the herb gathering team, there will be a guarantee of safety if everyone looks after each other. Hearing this, Tianyang was slightly stunned. He did not expect Xiao Tian to ask him to stay to talk about this matter. However, Tianyang did not think for long and flatly refused. Sorry, I'm used to being alone. Even if I join the herb gathering team, I won't cooperate well with the others. So, Pavilion Master Xiao, please find someone else. I'm leaving. Chapter 27. Tianyang, that trash. Instead of hiding in his own residence and trembling in fear, he went to the fearsome Beast Mountain range to seek death. Lingyun's sect, outer sect in a courtyard. Bai Lu, who had finally healed his severed hand with great difficulty, but his face was still rather pale. At this moment, he looked at the outer sect disciple who had sent him the message with a ferocious expression. There should have been a sturdy fist on his wrist, but there was nothing there. The broken section of his wrist, which had barely formed a scab, was dark red and sinister. It looked particularly terrifying. Bai Lu's expression became incomparably sinister when he saw this. He couldn't suppress the endless murderous intent in his words. The outer sect disciple, who was already trembling in fear, was so intimidated that he didn't dare to speak. Yes, the disciple, who was only at the 3rd level of the body refinement realm, said in a weak voice. Bai Xiang was still recuperating in seclusion. It would be fine if Tianyang didn't make a move. Once he did, it wouldn't be so easy for him to recover. I originally wanted to settle the score with him after I recovered from my injuries. Now, he actually went to the fearsome Beast Mountain range to seek death. He can't blame me for this. Bai Lu's tone was sinister. His left hand, which was on the left armrest, almost clawed it into powder. The violent, murderous intent couldn't be suppressed and directly exploded. After the battle with Tianyang, Bai Lu had profited from a disaster. He had broken through from the 7th level of the body refinement realm to the 8th level of the body refinement realm. However, this was only a momentary recovery. Bai Lu knew that as long as his right fist didn't recover, the chances of him breaking through to the clear chi stage were extremely slim. His martial path was almost completely severed by Tianyang's sword. If Bai Lu didn't take revenge for this blood feud, even if he was at the 9th level of the body refinement realm, he wouldn't have the slightest chance. It seems that there are still people from the Bai family at the edge of the fearsome Beast Mountain range. Fearsome Beast Mountain range is incomparably chaotic. Even if someone dies there, it's normal. Tianyang, it's time for you to die. At the same time, Tianyang had also left the 10,000 drug pavilion and arrived at the edge of the fearsome Beast Mountain range. In the small town, it was still considered a distant view, although one could see the majesty of the fearsome Beast Mountain range at a glance. In the end, it still lacked some grandeur. At this moment, standing at the foot of the mountain, looking at the lush mountain range, it was as if the energy of heaven and earth here was much higher than in the outside world. Faintly, the roars of magical beasts could be heard. 10,000 years ago, this place was still an enormous lake. But now, it has become such an enormous mountain range, said Tianyang with a sigh. That great destruction had shocked the entire world and caused a huge change in the heavenly continent. Other than the fact that the general territory had not changed, some of the mountain landforms were completely different from what Tianyang had seen 10,000 years ago. That was why he had such a feeling. After that, Tianyang ignored the strange gazes of the surrounding mercenaries and tourists. Without hesitation, he stepped into the mountain range and disappeared into the depths of the forest. After Tianyang left, the group of mercenaries who had been intimidated by the faintly discernible Emperor's aura on Tianyang's body also broke the strange silence and muttered, "This boy looks like he's only in the body refining realm, but he dares to step into the fearsome Beast Mountain range. He looks like he's only 15 or 16 years old, but why does the aura on his body feel a little strange?" A middle-aged mercenary at the 8th level of the body refining realm could not help but sigh. Then, he sensed that the faintly discernible aura had also disappeared, and Tianyang had also completely stepped into the fearsome Beast Mountain range. The fearsome Beast Mountain range was incomparably huge. The border between the Blizzard Country and another country was actually the fearsome Beast Mountain range. In fact, the length of the fearsome Beast Mountain range was even greater than the border between the two countries. The huge living area, the abundant energy of heaven and earth, and the natural gathering place of magical beasts had caused the fearsome Beast Mountain range to run amok, and it was famous far and wide. The periphery was better, as there were only level 1 or level 2 magical beasts. To find a level 2 magical beast, in addition to strength, one also needed luck. After all, the periphery was still the territory of humans. However, the deeper one went, the more tyrannical the strength of the magical beasts. Legend had it that in the deepest part of the fearsome Beast Mountain range, there was a level 4 fearsome beast that had been dormant for a long time. It was just that the humans who did not want to train in the fearsome Beast Mountain range did not attack and kill. In Tianyang's senses, there is also a faintly discernible powerful aura in the depths of the mountain range. However, because it was too far away and his own spiritual strength was too weak, he could not tell whether it was the legendary level 4 fearsome beast or not. "It doesn't matter." Tianyang chuckled, then took out the map of the periphery of the fearsome Beast Mountain range that Xiao Tian, the master of the 10,000 medicine pavilion, had kindly given him. Magical beasts with dragon blood are extremely rare even in the fearsome Beast Mountain range. However, there might be some types of snake-type magical beasts that contain dragon blood. The map that Xiao Tian gave him actually marked the places where snake-type magical beasts live. "That's not bad." Tianyang chuckled, then locked on to a direction and used his body movement technique to sweep toward that general area. That was the place where snake-type magical beasts gathered closest to the town. Following the principle of proximity, Tianyang naturally flew there. However, the body movement technique that Tianyang practiced was really a little bad. When he was in the martial skills pavilion, he forgot to take out a body movement technique. As a result, the so-called layer cloud flight, which could not even be ranked in the low-grade yellow rank, did not even display 1/5 of Tianyang's chi and blood. After returning to the Lingyun sect, I have to go to the martial skills pavilion to choose a body movement technique. He shook his head. There were a lot of body movement techniques in his mind, but the cultivation of body movement techniques required a lot of physical strength. With Tianyang's current physical strength, it was really difficult for him to cultivate body movement techniques that were at least at the high-grade profound rank. Just as he was about to speed up, Tianyang's eyebrows suddenly moved slightly. His gaze shifted, as if passing through layers of trees, and was projected to a certain place in the fearsome Beast Mountain range. A somewhat familiar aura also came from that side. This aura seems to be from a snake-type magical beast, but there are other auras as well, Tianyang whispered, then immediately changed his direction and swept toward that place. In the aura, there was not only the aura of a snake-type magical beast, but also the aura of a human. There were a lot of trees in the periphery of the fearsome Beast Mountain range, but under Tianyang's extremely nimble flips and movements, there was no way to affect his speed at all. Not long after, Tianyang came to the edge of an open space. Standing on a tree, Tianyang looked at the open space where the giant silver snake was fiercely attacking the three young boys and girls. His pupils contracted slightly. Chapter 28. This is a silver snake electric python. The silver snake electric python was a snake that Tianyang encountered during an adventure in his previous life. At that time, he was only at the 3rd level of the Bright Chi realm, but by chance, he was able to kill the silver lightning python, which was at the 4th level of the Bright Chi realm. From then on, he ate it from head to toe. Blood, flesh, and bones were all treasures, and among them, the snake gallbladder was the most valuable. The silver snake electric python, as its name implied, was silver-white and contained the power of thunder and lightning. Although the power of thunder and lightning was almost useless to the average silver snake electric python, the power of thunder and lightning was almost useless. However, if the power of thunder and lightning stored in the snake gallbladder was refined by a human, then the person who swallowed the snake gallbladder would have a chance to refine the power of thunder and lightning and strengthen his own attack power. The snake gallbladder itself was also extremely precious. Although the taste was not very good, it allowed Tianyang to completely recover from the internal injuries that he suffered when he forcefully broke through the 790 feet mark. Furthermore, his physical strength was even more refined than before. He originally thought that he was lucky enough to encounter the silver snake electric python in his previous life. He did not expect that in this life, he would encounter the silver snake electric python as soon as he stepped into the fearsome Beast Mountain range. However, this silver snake electric python seems to be attacking these youths. Hiding in the tree, Tianyang did not act rashly. The silver snake electric python had such a great effect, and its own strength was also extraordinary. Looking at its appearance, although it was not as strong as the 2nd level silver snake electric python that he encountered in his previous life, which was equivalent to the 4th level of the Bright Chi realm, it was still at the peak of the 1st level of the magical beasts. If he acted rashly, Tianyang would need a lot of time to cleanly harvest it. At this time, Tianyang's gaze shifted from the silver snake electric python to the 3 young disciples who were retreating under the fierce attack of the silver snake electric python. The white robes on their bodies were now stained with blood or torn by the tyrannical attack. Tianyang saw through the cultivation of the 3 people with one glance. 2 males and 1 female. The 2 males were at the 6th level of the body refinement realm, but they were not far from the 7th level of the body refinement realm. As for the female, she seemed to have just broken through to the 6th level of the body refinement realm. In terms of battle prowess, she was the weakest amongst the 3. Although there are 3 of them, it seems that if I don't act, they will definitely die. Tianyang rubbed his chin and muttered as he looked at the 3 people in front of him. Then, his eyes narrowed slightly as he discovered an unusual mark on their chests. Ling, Yin? Tianyang was stunned for a moment before he grinned. Since you're from the Soaring Cloud sect, I have no choice but to take action. After all, I'm definitely going to eat this silver snake lightning python's flesh. In the next moment, the Stratocloud leap movement technique, which couldn't even be considered a low-grade yellow-rank martial art, was directly displayed by Tianyang to an unprecedented peak state. In the next moment, a cold light directly appeared between the silver lightning python and the three people. Moreover, that sharp and precise sword ray had directly slashed apart one of the silver lightning python's attacks. Every attack contained a trace of the silver snake electric python's own strength. Originally, the silver snake electric python was completely toying with the three people, but now that its attack was broken, it was caught off guard and let out a painful hiss. Hiss! The silver snake electric python let out a sharp hiss, and a rolling sound wave spread out. Seeing this, the three people's faces changed. They could no longer care about the sword light from before, and hurriedly circulated the remaining true origin in their bodies to protect their ears. At this moment, Tianyang, who had already arrived in front of the three people, only smiled lightly in the face of this sound wave that was enough to shatter the eardrums of mortals. His lips moved slightly. Huh! A thunderous shout directly covered the silver snake electric python's sharp hiss, and even suppressed the silver snake electric python's sound wave attack. The silver snake electric python's huge body that was several feet long also froze for a moment. For the Tianji Sword Emperor, this moment was enough. Flowing cloud sword technique. Tianyang let out a low shout and slightly bent his knees. Then, he leaped up and waved the fine steel sword in his hand. The sword move that was as smooth as flowing clouds and flowing water was displayed once again. Hiss hiss. The silver snake electropython let out another hiss and recovered from its frozen state. Seeing the sword attack that was like a flowing cloud in front of it in an instant, it hurriedly closed its eyes. Clang! The sound of the sword striking hard steel was heard. Seeing this, Tianyang was slightly surprised. The defensive power of this silver snake electropython was actually so strong. The advantage that he had gained from the surprise attack had been completely wiped out in these few short exchanges. It was only at this moment that the three of them finally reacted. Be careful. This big silver snake may be the top existence among the first-level magical beasts. Don't meet force with force. Seeing the figure of a young man suddenly appear in front of them, the weakest girl among the three could not help but remind him. Hearing this, Tianyang also smiled. The fine steel sword in his hand slashed at the silver snake electropython without even looking at it. Clang! 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 3 consecutive slashes, none of which caused Tianyang's gaze to focus on the silver snake electric python's body. For the Tianji Sword Emperor, the silver snake electric python's attack was like a 3-year-old waving a broadsword. There was no technique to speak of. Just a rough sense was enough for him to see through the silver snake electric python's next attack. Hiss! Tianyang's swords blocked all the moves in a row, and the strange rebounding force of the swords even caused some injuries to the silver serpent lightning serpent. A sharp hiss came out of the silver snake electric python's mouth again, resounding through the clouds. At this moment, Tianyang's eyes flickered slightly. The fine steel sword in his hand flickered with a layer of light. It was unknown whether the sky firmament sword could swallow the silver snake electropython, but it could also make this fine steel sword stronger. Layers of fluctuating flashes of light suddenly appeared on the silver snake scales. The silver snake electric python's cold and emotionless snake eyes also slightly widened. Within the pupils, there was a faint flicker of lightning. Seeing this, the girl's pupils shrank to the extreme. Be careful. This is this beast's killer move. The girl shouted. At this moment, the silver snake electric python's killer move had finished accumulating power, suddenly opening its mouth, accompanied by an incomparably sharp roar. The snake tongue entwined with strands of lightning also suddenly shot out. Like the toughest blade, even if the girl used all her strength to attack, it could not make the silver snake electric python tremble at all. At this moment, in the silver snake electric python's muddled mind, Tianyang, who was able to easily block its heavy attacks, had already become a person who must be killed. He actually comprehended this move. Thunder Tongue Impalement? Your talent is much stronger than the Silver Snake Electric Python at that time. Tianyang turned his head and looked at the silver snake tongue that was like a lightning spear shooting towards him. He chuckled lightly. On the fine steel sword in his hand, the light of the sky, firmament, sword suddenly lit up. Unfortunately, you're even more unlucky than that silver snake electric python. Following that, the flowing cloud sword accompanied by an incomparably sharp flowing cloud concept. With a wave of Tianyang's hand, the chi of the 6th level of the body refinement realm brazenly attacked. Chapter 29. The two incomparably violent energies fiercely bombarded each other. In an instant, an incomparably huge air wave erupted from the center of the battle between both parties. Instantly, it engulfed the entire empty ground. The three people, who were already exhausted from being chased by the silver snake lightning python, were unable to withstand this air wave. They continuously retreated a couple of steps before stabilizing their bodies. However, the three of them were all dumbstruck as they looked at Tianyang, who was in the midst of a fierce battle with the silver lightning python. That person, who is he? He seems to be wearing the robes of an outer court disciple of our Lingyun sect. But is there anyone so strong among the outer court disciples? Among the top 10 disciples, the one who is most proficient in using the sword is ranked 3rd, Guxiao. However, I dare to guarantee that even if Guxiao is at the 8th level of the body refinement stage, it is absolutely impossible for him to engage in such a fierce battle with this silver beast. Among the three, the man with a slightly more robust body couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Hearing this, the young girl beside him also nodded her head, extraordinary splendor rippling within her beautiful eyes. And at this moment, after Tianyang and the silver lightning python had jointly used their strongest moves, the battle had also entered its end. Hiss. Its strongest attack was actually so easily blocked by Tianyang, causing the silver lightning python to instantly be incomparably furious. Its tongue entwined with lightning once again shot out. This time, it was no longer an ordinary long-range energy attack, but directly using its tongue to battle. Originally, no matter what race it was, the tongue was an extremely soft place. However, after the silver snake lightning python used the thunder tongue thrust, the tongue also turned from a soft and weak point into a tough and powerful weapon of war with great destructive power. Actually using the tongue to battle? Truly stupid. Seeing this, Tianyang coldly laughed and abruptly waved the fine steel sword in his hand. Like a flowing cloud, the sword directly exploded out and chopped onto the silver lightning python's tongue, and the lightning entwined on it was directly shattered. So what if iron can conduct electricity? After my true essence directly shatters your lightning, let's see what else you can conduct. Tianyang sneered, and his footsteps suddenly became illusory. It wasn't the kind of low-grade, yellow-ranked martial arts that couldn't even be ranked, but the flickering, light-passing shadow that was extremely useful in close combat in his previous life. Flickering, light-passing shadow was not a martial art. It was merely a footwork technique. However, if it was used well, its power would not be inferior to a normal yellow-class movement technique. As the Tianji Sword Emperor, Tianyang naturally used this technique to its fullest potential. The bolts of lightning, no matter which one it was, all had the power to kill an ordinary 5th-level body refinement realm martial artist. The silver serpent lightning python that was in an enraged state never considered the consumption of true essence. At this moment, it only wanted to blast the Tianyang in front of it into dregs. However, Tianyang's body was like an incomparably slippery loach. Every time a lightning bolt was about to hit him, that strange technique would cause Tianyang's body to seem to teleport out of thin air, using an incomparably tricky angle to dodge the attack. Every strike of Tianyang's sword landed solidly on its body and tongue. No matter how tough the silver serpent lightning python scales were, it still couldn't block Tianyang's flowing cloud sword technique. Streams of fresh blood spurted out from the silver serpent lightning python's wounds like streams of blood arrows. The three people who were exhausted from being chased by the silver serpent lightning python were now dumbstruck. Was this still the top rank one magical beast that played with them like toys? Why did it feel like the unknown Lingyun sect outer court disciple was the true master of this battle? Moreover, their senses were not wrong in the slightest. Tianyang was undoubtedly at the 6th level of the body refinement realm. With the cultivation of the 6th level of the body refinement realm, he was able to battle the silver serpent lightning python, which was comparable to the peak of the 9th level of the body refinement realm. Heavens, what kind of genius was this? Tianyang didn't have the slightest intention of paying attention to the three people's exclamations. From his point of view, killing the silver serpent lightning python was his main business. Saving the three people was only something he did along the way. It's time to end this. Tianyang's pupils contracted as he focused his attention on a single point. Following that, the fine steel sword in his hand exploded with a huge bright light. The little remaining true origin gathered on the fine steel sword at this moment. Tianyang even felt the fine steel sword tremble slightly. This was because the true origin that Tianyang poured into it had reached its limit. The sky sword also played its role at this moment, as it completely absorbed the overflowing true origin. In the next moment, the silver serpent lightning python seemed to feel that its life was in danger as it crazily hissed. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Its tough tongue continuously spat out with incomparably sharp lightning. Tianyang coldly snorted. In the previous battle, he had already completely understood the silver serpent lightning python's attack patterns. The flickering light passing shadow was continuously used. Its desperate attacks did not have any effect on Tianyang at all. At this moment, the long sword in Tianyang's hand moved. Flowing cloud shuttle. Following Tianyang's loud shout, the fine steel sword in Tianyang's hand instantly flew out like a cannonball. In an extremely short period of time, it accelerated to an incomparably terrifying degree. At this moment, the true origin gathered on the fine steel sword, and the sky sword completely exploded. The silver serpent lightning python opened its mouth wide in order to use its tongue to attack Tianyang. At this moment, it had become its biggest weakness. Tianyang was previously calculating the best opportunity, and now, the best opportunity had arrived. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The threat to its life instantly soared to the extreme. The beastly instincts of a magical beast were completely activated. However, under Tianyang's long-prepared flying sword, everything was useless. Bang! Pooh! The hurriedly condensed true origin defense was instantly penetrated. In the next moment, the physical defense that an ordinary body refinement realm cultivator could not break was directly penetrated by the accumulated power of the sword. A gorgeous blood arrow spurted out from the back of the silver serpent lightning python's head. Within this blood arrow, a fine steel sword emitting an azure luster proudly displayed its body. In the next moment, Tianyang's figure flashed as he used the stratospheric cloud leap. He jumped several feet high and held the fine steel sword in his hand. Then he changed direction in the air and suddenly stabbed down. Boom! The huge potential, coupled with Tianyang's attack power, directly shattered the silver serpent lightning python's remaining life force. On the place where Tianyang attacked, a huge wound appeared. Then, in the instant that his body swept past the silver serpent lightning python's corpse, Tianyang reached out and grabbed a round object that was stained with blood but emitted a silver glow. Tianyang grabbed it. In the next moment, Tianyang gracefully landed on the ground. The huge body of the silver serpent lightning python also collapsed with a loud bang. Boom! Chapter 30. Boom! The silver lightning python's body, which was several feet long, fell to the ground with a loud crash. Without the suppression of the silver lightning python, the countless wounds on its body caused by the fine steel sword began to wildly bleed. Streams of blood shot out like arrows. In an instant, the blood under the silver lightning python's corpse gathered into a small pool. The thick smell of blood emitted from the pool of blood. Just by smelling it, The girl's face turned pale. Even the two youths who had hunted a few magic beasts felt a little nauseous at this moment. The thick smell of blood was really too pungent. In addition to the visual impact of the huge corpse, even though they had killed many magic beasts, they still felt a little uncomfortable at this moment. And they also looked at Tianyang, who was standing in the pool of blood without a change in expression, with shocked eyes. Not only could he kill the incomparably powerful silver snake, but he could also face such a bloody scene with a normal expression. What kind of monster was this person? There was definitely no such person in the top 10 of the Lingyun sect's outer disciples. Dead. At this moment, the girl blankly cried out in surprise. At this moment, Tianyang, who was standing in the same place, finally noticed that there were a few people beside him. He turned his head and smiled at the few people he did not recognize. The strange thing was that although the silver lightning python's corpse was still spurting blood, Tianyang's face was still as white as ever. The rain of blood that filled the sky did not touch him at all. "Thank you for saving our lives." At this moment, the remaining two people came to their senses and knelt on one knee as they said loudly. In the bottom of their hearts, there was still some lingering fear. If this young man had arrived a few minutes later, the three of them would definitely have died in the mouth of the silver snake. The gratitude they felt towards Tianyang in the bottom of their hearts also rose to the extreme. It's nothing. Hearing this, Tianyang also smiled. Then, he looked at the Lingyun sect insignia on the three people's chests and asked curiously, "You guys are the Lingyun sect's outer disciples?" "Yes." Just when they were worried that the person in front of them might not respond to them, they didn't expect Tianyang to unexpectedly open his mouth. The strongest young man suddenly laughed. Not even a 7th level of the body refinement realm dares to come to the vicious beast mountain range, a little too naive. Shaking his head, Tianyang said. Hearing this, the corner of a young man's mouth twitched. Then he lowered his head in shame. Indeed, the powerful disciples of the Lingyun sect had all trained in the ferocious Beast Mountain range. They also wanted to try their luck. In the end, they did manage to kill many magical beasts before they encountered this terrifying silver python. If not for Tianyang's timely intervention, they would have died in the python's stomach. It would be an understatement to say that this kind of action was naive. "My name is Wan Gong. May I know your name?" Raising his head, the young man regained his composure and clasped his fist respectfully. "I'm Wan Jin, and I'm Xiangwen." Seeing Wan Gong announce his name, the girl and the other man also cupped their fists and said. Hearing this, Tianyang also raised his head and smiled. Tianyang. Tianyang? Hearing this name, Wan Gong and the other two were slightly stunned. Then, they frowned slightly. Why did this name sound so familiar? However, they were sure that they had never seen this young man in front of them before. Where did this familiar feeling come from? Tianyang? Isn't that the weakest of the three great trash of the Lingyun sect? The big trash who doesn't even have a martial soul and can't even step into the martial path? At this moment, Xiangwen suddenly exclaimed. Hearing this, Wan Gong suddenly realized. Then, he looked at Tianyang, who was at the 6th level of the body refinement realm. His face twitched, and without hesitation, he directly hit Xiangwen's head with his hand. How is this possible? Young hero Tianyang is so powerful. How can you be that trash? That's right, I am one of the three great trash of the Lingyun sect, Tianyang from the Tian family of the Arctic state. Tianyang laughed. Hearing this, Wan Gong and the other two were all stunned, especially Wan Gong, who wanted to slap his own face 180 times consecutively. Trash? Saying that his savior was trash? That's impossible. At this moment, Wan Jin finally spoke. Tianyang, didn't you have a crippled meridian and can't step into the martial path? Your strength is completely different from yours. I'm the Tianyang that you're talking about. However, you don't have to ask about the relationship between us. Tianyang said. His face was still as calm as before. Hearing this, the three of them were stunned. Then they understood something. How could someone with such strength be trash? The previous rumors were definitely fake. If they were right, then Tianyang was even scarier. He purposely hid his strength to train his mind. Such a genius was too. Thinking of this, the three of them shuddered. The way they looked at Tianyang also changed. All right, fearsome Beast Mountain Range is very dangerous. There are countless demonic beasts like the silver snake electric python. You're only at the 6th level of the body refining realm. Coming here is no different from courting death. If you don't want to die, it's better to leave quickly, Tianyang said. Hearing this, the three of them nodded in agreement. This fearsome Beast Mountain Range was really too dangerous. They were just moving around the periphery, and they had already encountered a first-order demonic beast like the silver snake electric python. If they were to continue walking and reach a deeper area, wouldn't there be such magical beasts running all over the place? If that was the case, with their weak cultivation, going in was no different from sending themselves to their deaths. Senior Tianyang is right. Then we will leave first. I hope Senior Tianyang will be more careful when you're training. The beasts here are more cunning than the other. Wang Gong nodded. Then he led Xiang Wen and Wan Jin to the exit of fearsome Beast Mountain Range. When he said the last sentence, he was a little angry. On the other hand, Wan Jin looked at Tianyang with extraordinary splendor. No one knew what was going on in his heart. In response, Tianyang nodded noncommittally. After he refined the silver snake electric python's gallbladder, he could even fight against a first-order cultivator of the bright chi realm. As for the ordinary first-order demonic beasts in the periphery of fearsome Beast Mountain Range, they were naturally nothing in his eyes. Then, Wan Gong and the other two left the range of Tianyang's detection. In his detection, there was no one except for him in the surrounding 300 meters. Tianyang grinned and took out the silver round object in his hand. There seemed to be traces of lightning flashing on it, faintly exuding a dangerous aura. Tianyang came in front of the huge body of the silver snake electric python. The gallbladder of the silver snake electric python contained the power of thunder and lightning and had a strong body-tempering effect. Then, Tianyang's figure moved. He exploded with a terrifying speed and left the place. Chapter 31. Dragging the huge corpse of the silver snake lightning python, Tianyang came to a cave. He had already found this cave before he killed the silver snake lightning python. It was his temporary residence while he hunted magical beasts in the fearsome Beast Mountain Range. After all, he was only at the 6th level of the body refinement realm. If he wanted to keep hunting, he had to be at least at the clear chi realm. Although the scales of the silver snake lightning python are tough, they no longer have that tough characteristic after losing their vitality. Even if I use a special method, I can only forge it into a heart-protecting mirror. Otherwise, it would be too brittle. Looking at the snake scale heart-protecting mirror that was about the size of 2 palms, Tianyang rubbed his chin and muttered. Although the entire body of the silver snake lightning python was a treasure, its scales were still a little lacking compared to other things. At least, Tianyang would only tamper with the scales when he didn't have the materials. At other times, he wouldn't be interested in them. Tianyang didn't spend too much time forging this snake scale heart protecting mirror. It was just something he did along the way. His next move in the cave was the most important thing for him today. Refining the snake's gallbladder requires a lot of true essence. In the previous battle, in order to kill the silver snake lightning python, I also used up a lot of true essence. Sitting cross-legged on the clean ground, Tianyang said slowly. Then he patted the disposable space bag on his waist. A pill cauldron and 5 sets of medicinal ingredients for refining the chi revitalizing pill appeared in front of Tianyang. Recovering true essence could naturally be done through cultivation. However, Tianyang was pressed for time now. Naturally, he couldn't use such a time-consuming method. Since that was the case, he could only refine the Chi Revitalizing Pill. Chi Revitalizing Pill. TSK. When I could use this in my previous life, it wasn't there yet. When I couldn't use it anymore, it was sent to me. The owner of the medicine shop looked amiable, but in the end, he was extremely cunning. If it wasn't for me, I would have been cheated by him. Looking at the medicinal ingredients for the Chi Revitalizing Pill, Tianyang sighed softly. When he obtained the Qi revitalizing pill formula, he was already on the verge of breaking through to the essence transformation stage. The Qi revitalizing pill was of little use to him. Back then, the boss had left a deep impression on Tianyang. 10,000 years later, everything had turned to dust. Not to mention that person, even a small mountain was unknown. Let's not talk about it anymore. Ever since I was reborn, I haven't had the chance to properly refine anything. Tianyang withdrew his thoughts from his memories and chuckled softly. Then he swiped his finger across the pill cauldron, and a flame appeared beneath it. The first step of alchemy, heating the cauldron. Heating the cauldron was an important part of refining pills. After all, even though the cauldron was hard, the medicinal ingredients were extremely fragile. If the bottom was hot and the top was cold, then the heat and cold would be out of sync. In a light case, the medicinal ingredients would be wasted, and in a heavy case, the cauldron would explode. Of course, even though heating the cauldron was important, it didn't require much skill. If it was done by an alchemy master with a profound cultivation base, he would only need to swipe his finger lightly and the cauldron would automatically reach the optimal temperature. However, although Tianyang's alchemy skills were not inferior to those alchemy masters, his cultivation base was still too low. He could only wait patiently for the true yuan flame to heat up the pill cauldron. Not long after, this pill cauldron that was barely passable was adjusted to the perfect temperature by Tianyang. In the next moment, Tianyang's lips curled into a subtle smile. With a wave of his right hand, a set of medicinal ingredients directly fell into the pill cauldron. He didn't throw in the medicinal ingredients one by one like the conventional alchemy method. Instead, he directly threw in a set of medicinal ingredients. If this action was seen by outsiders, they would definitely exclaim in disbelief. Even among alchemy masters, not many would dare to do this. If the adjustment was not done properly, that set of medicinal ingredients would definitely be reduced to ashes. However, who was Tianyang? The strongest person in the continent 10,000 years ago, the Tianji Sword Emperor. Even if it was alchemy, he still had the sharpness of a sword cultivator. If it were high-grade pills, perhaps he would be more careful. However, energy recovery pills? They were not worthy. Refining one pill at a time? Maybe it's possible, but I don't have enough time now. It was said that the soaring cloud sect's inner sect disciple assessment was coming soon. The outer sect's cultivation resources were far from meeting Tianyang's needs. Only the inner sect disciples could barely meet his needs. 5 energy pills in a month? If it weren't for the fact that his body had 5 energy recovery pills, Tianyang would have directly defeated an inner sect disciple and directly entered the inner sect. If one pill at a time is fine, then let me have some fun. Under Tianyang's exquisite and terrifying control of the flames, the medicinal ingredients that were being burned together in the cauldron did not directly explode or turn to ashes. Instead, they gradually melted under the different degrees of high temperature. Also, because Tianyang was doing it all at once, the few drops of liquid that were about to become the most perfect liquid essence began to slowly fuse. Now, Tianyang's right hand suddenly left the cauldron. In the next moment, the remaining 4 sets of medicinal ingredients all fell into the cauldron. Lunatic! If others were to see this, they would definitely shout wildly. Even if these 5 sets of medicinal ingredients didn't add up to 1,000,000 gold coins, it wasn't far off. But Tianyang's actions, in the eyes of ordinary people, was simply burning money. As the 4 sets of medicinal ingredients fell into the cauldron, the few drops of medicinal essence that were fusing also fluctuated violently. Strange sounds continuously came from the cauldron, and waves of unstable energy fluctuations were also emitted. In the eyes of others, this was definitely a sign that the cauldron was about to explode. If they encountered it, they would definitely run as far away as possible. Otherwise, they would definitely be injured by the aftermath of the cauldron explosion. However, to Tianyang, all of this was within his expectations. 3 inches in front, calcining at high temperature, 1 inch behind, tempering at low temperature. It's just refining 5 pills at the same time. Do you think I can't deal with you? Tianyang chuckled. Then, what little inner yuan was left in his body completely exploded. Bang! A crisp sound of collision sounded in the cauldron. Tianyang was incomparably calm as he continued to adjust the temperature of the flames in the cauldron. In the next moment, the chaotic energy fluctuations suddenly calmed down. The banging sound of collision also gradually weakened. Not long after, it completely disappeared. The temperature of the flames in the cauldron also gradually decreased. Under the low temperature tempering, traces of gray impurities turned into air currents and drifted out. Tianyang's expression finally became a little more serious. His hands left the cauldron and formed a strange hand seal. "Condense for me," Tianyang roared. In the next moment, the cauldron, which had suddenly calmed down, instantly exploded with even more terrifying fluctuations than before. As for Tianyang, his eyes narrowed slightly. His inner yuan surged and directly poured in. Following that, Tianyang suddenly slammed his right hand. With a bang, the lid of the cauldron flew out. Inside the cauldron, within the flames, 5 pills also shot out. Tianyang shot out like lightning. In the end, they landed firmly in Tianyang's hands. His 5 fingers slowly opened. The perfectly round pills that were still warm lay quietly in Tianyang's palm, exuding an intoxicating medicinal fragrance. At this moment, Tianyang also revealed a trace of smile. Chapter 32. 5 clear blue pills slowly rotated in Tianyang's palm. The clear medicinal fragrance emitted from the pills caused people to be unable to help but become intoxicated. For those who had just stepped onto the martial path from the 1st to 3rd level of the refinement realm, just the medicinal fragrance alone was enough to allow them to recover some of their true yuan. If people knew that Tianyang could refine pills, they would probably immediately extend an olive branch to him. After all, the status of a pill master, whether it was 10,000 years ago or 10,000 years later, was incomparably revered. Thinking about it, Tianyang only spent 0 gold coins to purchase these medicinal ingredients. Even if he didn't use the incomplete pill formula for the Qi revitalizing pill, which was of little value to him, it would only cost a few 100,000. And now, if these 5 Qi revitalizing pills that Tianyang had refined were to be placed in an auction house, it would definitely be impossible to bid for them without at least a few million. A few 100,000 medicinal ingredients in the hands of a pill master would turn into pills that were worth 10 times more. This kind of miraculous skill would cause countless people to go crazy. It was a pity that the extremely harsh conditions to become a pill master had hindered too many people. Refining 5 pills at the same time, I've gone a little overboard this time. Wiping away the sweat on his forehead, Tianyang laughed lightly. For his current true yuan of the 6th level of the refinement realm, even if his skills were able to do it, the support of his true yuan was still somewhat lacking. If not for his pill refining skills reaching this world's top 6th level, it was likely that these 5 sets of pills would have become useless pills. All right, the appetizer has been completed. Next, it's time for the most precious item that I obtained from the silver electric python. Tianyang laughed lightly. In his previous life, he had obtained many benefits from the gallbladder of the silver electric python. And now, in his rebirth, he had once again successfully hunted and killed a silver electric python. As Tianyang thought about how his strength had improved by leaps and bounds after going through the thunder-lightning body tempering in his previous life, he could not help but reveal a hint of joy on his face, even though he was more cultured than others. After that, he put the 4 chi-restoring pills into his space bag and swallowed the remaining 1 without hesitation. As soon as the pill entered his mouth, it turned into an incomparably pure medicinal power. Under Tianyang's control, it flowed through the strange spiral meridians in his body and was constantly refined by his true qi. Waves of medicinal power turned into waves of vital essence and quickly filled Tianyang's dantian. It seemed that because the refining of this qi-restoring pill was extremely perfect, after Tianyang's vital essence was completely replenished, there was still a part of the medicinal power that had not been absorbed. Tianyang naturally could not sit by and watch it go to waste. He tapped his interspatial bag with his right hand, and the clean silver electropython's gallbladder appeared in his hand. A ball of flame suddenly rose between his hands and began to continuously refine the impurities in the gallbladder. Some of the things in the gallbladder, such as the power of thunder and lightning, were what Tianyang needed. However, there were more things, such as some of the unclean things that the silver electropython had eaten during its meal, that Tianyang had to refine out. Otherwise, if he rashly refined and swallowed it, the one who would end up in a tragedy would be Tianyang himself. Refining the impurities with one hand and refining the medicinal power with the other. If others saw Tianyang's actions, their jaws would definitely drop to the ground. This kind of action not only required the person to have a strong talent for multitasking, but also required the person to have perfect control over his vital essence. If something went wrong, both sides would explode at the same time. For an ordinary practitioner, doing this kind of action was simply playing with fire, but for the Tianji Sword Emperor? What's so difficult about it? Not long after, as the medicinal power of the chi-restoring pill was completely absorbed and consumed by Tianyang, the silver electropython's gallbladder also expelled the last trace of impurities. The grayish-red airflow fluctuated in the air, and the dark red silver electric python's gallbladder, which originally had a bloody smell and a dark red color, completely turned into a silver snake gallbladder. The silver radiance overflowed, and on the perfectly round shape, there seemed to be lines intersecting to form small hexagons. It was like an incomparably beautiful silver gem, and also like a powerful spirit stone inlaid on a sword. Under the sunlight, it was like a gem, and people could not help but be immersed in it. Even though Tianyang had seen it once in his previous life, when he saw this strange object again, he could not help but exclaim in admiration. After that, Tianyang did not hesitate anymore. He sat down cross-legged, and the vital essence in his body was operated to the highest level. The next moment, he raised his neck, opened his mouth, and swallowed the silver electropython's gallbladder. In the next moment, the vital essence in his body was operating wildly, turning Tianyang's body into a furnace. The moment the silver electric python's gallbladder entered Tianyang's body, it began to melt. In the next moment, in the center of the silver snake gallbladder, bolts of lightning shot out directly. The most precious thing in the silver electropython's gallbladder was the power of lightning that could temper the body. Seeing this, Tianyang's face became slightly happy, but the next moment, it became serious. The power of lightning could greatly enhance his physical strength, but it was accompanied by an incomparably terrifying risk. Whoosh! The electric current passed through his flesh, and a part of his flesh was directly electrocuted into charcoal. Tianyang's face suddenly became distorted, and he kept operating his vital essence to refine the power of lightning. However, how fast was the speed of lightning? In an instant, this bolt of lightning swam through Tianyang's entire body. At this moment, Tianyang's face was completely distorted, and a tearing pain spread through his entire body. Pain, pain, pain. This was the risk that one had to bear to refine the silver electric python, and it was also the price that one had to pay on the road to becoming stronger. There is no one who became a powerhouse through smooth sailing. It's just the gallbladder of a rank one magical beast. And you dare to be arrogant in front of this emperor? Refine for me. Tianyang coldly shouted. Under Tianyang's control, the vital essence in his body went from the initial headless collision to orderly like an army. Following that, Tianyang roared. Divine desolate heaven spirit art, heaven spirit refinement. In an instant, within the spiral meridians that cultivated the divine desolate heaven spirit art, rays of light were emitted. The power of lightning that was wreaking havoc in Tianyang's body was illuminated by the rays of light, like a mouse meeting a cat, and it immediately softened. Seeing this, the corners of Tianyang's mouth curled into a smile. He endured the excruciating pain and directed the endless amount of vital energy to wrap around the lightning energy. Lightning, body refinement. In the next moment, the vital essence aura emitted by Tianyang began to soar rapidly, and the blood chi that was not easy to grow also began to soar at a terrifying speed that ordinary people could not imagine. At the same time, 1 mile east of the cave, two white-robed men who had just stepped into the ferocious Beast Mountain range were sneakily walking in the forest. The aura emitted from their bodies was shockingly at the 8th level of the body refinement realm. As the two of them walked, they would occasionally raise their heads and look around, as if they were looking for something. Tianyang, I've heard of this person. He's the trash of the Lingyun sect's outer sect. Not only did he dare to provoke our young master, he even dared to come to the Beast Mountain range to court death. With his cultivation, even if he came, he would not go too deep. This Tianyang dared to provoke young master Bai Lu. He's dead meat. Chapter 33. You still want to resist the last point? Swallow it for me. At this moment, the little bit of lightning energy that was left after being devoured by the divine, desolate heavenly spirit art seemed to have instinctively discovered the approaching danger and began to continuously erupt with bolts of lightning. However, this sort of counterattack was neither painful nor ticklish to Tianyang. The corner of Tianyang's mouth curled into a smile. In the next moment, Tianyang let out a low roar, and the divine, desolate heaven spirit art was fully activated. His true essence was like a roaring mountain. In the next moment, it directly pounced onto the power of lightning. The bolts of lightning were directly extinguished by the true essence. In the next moment, the last bolt of lightning was also devoured by Tianyang into his body. Following that, Tianyang's cultivation began to skyrocket. The 6th level of the body refinement realm was instantly trampled under Tianyang's feet. The barrier of the 7th level of the body refinement realm that was difficult for ordinary people to touch also began to be shaken. It did not last for long at all. The surging true essence directly destroyed the cultivation barrier as easily as crushing dry weeds. Tianyang's true essence had also reached the standard of the 7th level of the body refinement realm. As for Tianyang's blood chi, it also began to explode. 20 feet, 20 feet, 20 feet. Only when it reached 25 feet did it slowly stop. Finally, it stopped at 25 feet. 7 feet. If others were to see such a terrifying blood chi, they would definitely be dumbfounded. Even the current number 1 disciple of the Lingyun sect's outer sect wasn't this strong when he was at the 7th level of the body refinement realm. Haha, awesome. Tianyang laughed loudly. In the next moment, he slowly stood up and kept the pill cauldron in front of him into his interspatial bag. Following that, the surging blood chi also slowly retracted. His 4 limbs were filled with tyrannical strength. With a casual punch, the sound of air exploding could be heard. If this frightening strength were to hit a person's body, the scene would cause them to feel a chill down their spine. Although the intelligence of this silver lightning python is not as high as the one from my previous life, the dragon blood in its body is a little more abundant than the one from my previous life. The speed at which it can complete the first refinement is also much faster. Tianyang chuckled. Then his eyebrows twitched slightly. Then a smile appeared on his face. That by guy, are you that impatient? Fine, I'm in a good mood right now. It's not a bad idea to take in 2 people to liven things up. Then, Tianyang's body trembled and exploded with a terrifying speed, disappearing on the spot. This Tianyang is really slippery. After searching for a long time, I still can't find him. Could it be that he already knew that young Master Bai Lu was going to deal with him and hid? I'm afraid that he thinks too highly of himself just because he succeeded in his sneak attack on young Master Bai Lu. Even our Bai family's elder ancestor doesn't dare to go too deep into the fearsome Beast Mountain range. This Tianyang was just a piece of trash before. Now that he has a little opportunity, he probably thinks that he's invincible and ran into the depths of the fearsome Beast Mountain range to be eaten by demonic beasts. The 2 men in white mocked disdainfully as they searched. Cultivation at the 8th level of the body refinement realm, even in the Bai family, could be considered as the backbone of the family. However, they were sent by Bai Lu to this dangerous place where even birds don't shit to kill a person. Naturally, they didn't dare to be dissatisfied with Bai Lu. However, the 2 of them were unscrupulous towards Tianyang, one of the three great pieces of trash in the Lingyun sect's outer sect. Tisk, it's too easy for him to be eaten by demonic beasts. He's just a piece of trash. If he falls into my hands, I'll definitely make him beg for death. The man in white sneered. At this moment, a light voice came from the side. Are you looking for me? Tianyong stood on a tree branch and looked down at the two men in white as he spoke softly. Hearing this, the man in white's face suddenly changed. He took a few steps back and raised his head to look at Tianyong. He suddenly sneered. I was wondering who it was. So it's the piece of trash we're looking for. You dare to offend young Master Bai Lu and still dare to come to this fearsome beast mountain range. You're lucky that you weren't eaten by demonic beasts. I didn't expect you to be so stupid. There's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There's no door to hell, but you barge in. The man in white mocked. The true essence of the 8th level of the body refinement realm slowly spread out from his body. The other man in white next to him also had a contemptuous smile on his face at this moment. A blood chi of 15 feet instantly spread out. The surrounding air was filled with a faint layer of red. Tianyong Dai, when you're in hell, you'll regret provoking young Master Bai Lu. The man in white laughed wildly. Streams of true essence emerged from his hands. Then, he leaped and directly arrived in front of Tianyong. Wind wave fist. It was as if layers of waves were condensing. Tianyong immediately saw the grade of this wind wave fist. It wasn't high, but it was at the level of a middle-grade yellow rank. A middle-grade yellow rank fist technique was actually used by you to this extent. I thought that since you're slightly bigger than Bai Lu, the accuracy of your attacks will be much higher. I didn't expect you to still be like Bai Lu. Shaking his head in pity, Tianyong didn't use the fine steel sword on his back. His right hand clenched into a fist, and without any fancy moves, he directly punched out. Tong Ming Fist. Bang. Tong Ming Fist. One sound and one hidden force. True essence instantly exploded. The wind wave fist that was on the verge of collapse after blocking Tianyong's power on the surface was instantly shattered after encountering the explosion of the hidden force. A ball of fresh blood directly spurted out like a blood arrow. Seeing this, the other man in white's expression suddenly changed. Didn't they say that this Tianyong was a trash at the 6th level of the body refinement realm who relied on a sneak attack to win? How could he not only have the cultivation of the 7th level of the body refinement realm, but also be able to defeat Bai Qi in a direct confrontation, relying on the advantage of a sneak attack? The man in white coldly snorted and suddenly landed on the ground. True essence surged on his wound, but there was no way to heal it at all. Forcefully suppressing the pain, the man in white's expression also became ferocious. How dare you injure me? You're just a piece of trash. How dare you injure me? Now, give me your life. The man in white madly roared. Then, true essence condensed behind his back and directly formed an incomparably huge, illusory snake. However, although this illusory snake was huge, in terms of quality, it was much inferior to Bai Lu's purple python martial spirit. The purple python was a high-grade yellow rank martial spirit, and this huge green python was only a middle-grade yellow rank martial spirit. To be able to force me to use my green forest python martial spirit. A piece of trash like you can die without regrets. Now, Snake Fong Hunt, die for me. The man in white laughed loudly. The illusory snake eyes of the green forest python behind him flashed with a bloodthirsty cold light. In the next moment, it merged with the man in white's claws and attacked Tianyong. I was just waiting for you to use your martial spirit. Tianyong lightly laughed. The fine steel sword on his back instantly shot out and landed in Tianyong's hand. Then, the true essence in Tianyong's body also began to circulate. Flowing cloud sword technique, cloud shadow sword. A cloud-like sword light burst out and instantly disappeared into thin air. Then, the green forest python that had revealed its green fangs suddenly froze. Then, a beautiful blood ring on the man in white's neck slowly split open. Then, fresh blood violently spurted out. The man in white's arrogant and wild laughter before his death also froze at this moment. In his eyes, there was a bit of additional shock, but before it could be seen, he had completely lost his life. The man in white, who had just wanted to help now, had a completely pale face. Looking at Tianyang's calm expression, boundless fear arose in his heart. In a short moment. Chapter 34. His face was extremely pale. The remaining person stared at the headless corpse on the ground and the head that was rolling like a football in the distance. His stomach churned. At this moment, the terrifying blood arrows finally stopped. Most of the blood had gathered below the corpse, forming an incomparably sinister pool of blood. His legs were trembling uncontrollably. Although he had come to kill Tianyang, he had only been an upper-middle level fighter of the Bai family and an ordinary 8th level body refinement realm cultivator. What did he see such a bloody and terrifying scene? He looked at Tianyang with fear in his eyes. He had single-handedly created such a scene, yet he could still be so calm. Was this person a monster? Tianyang, on the other hand, waved a fine steel sword in his hand and wiped off all the blood droplets on it. Then, he looked at the man in white with an amused expression. Not bad. The brilliance of the sky firmament sword martial spirit flashed on the fine steel sword. Compared to when he was in the Lingyun sect, he had to be restrained when devouring other people's martial spirits. Killing people in the fearsome Beast Mountain range was simply much more satisfying. After killing the white-clothed man, the Azure Forest Python martial spirit was also completely devoured by Tianyang. Tianyang could feel that the sky firmament sword martial spirit was not far from the mid-grade yellow rank. Run. Looking at Tianyang's increasingly dangerous face, the white-clothed man's heart was filled with boundless fear. He frantically turned around and madly rushed out. His figure shuttled rapidly between the trees. At this moment, the white-clothed man's heart no longer cared about Bai Lu's orders and the dignity of the Bai family's young master. What bullshit, Bai Lu? Bullshit Bai family. Tianyang, how is he a trash? He was clearly a rare genius. Bai Lu actually ordered them to kill him. It was simply asking him to die. Since you want to kill me, then you should be prepared to be killed by me. Tianyang laughed softly. In the next moment, his figure suddenly disappeared from the spot. The low-grade movement technique, layer cloud flight, was directly displayed by Tianyang to the extreme. Perhaps the white-robed man's movement technique was far superior to his. However, in front of the Tianji Sword Emperor, any movement technique that had not been cultivated to the same level as him was just a weak chicken that could be defeated with a little time. Bastard! Feeling the dangerous aura coming closer and closer behind him, the man in white roared and turned around. You must have used some kind of sorcery to kill Bai Qi. Now die for me. Sand Snake Fist. On the white-clothed man's chest, there was a mark that looked like a poisonous snake in the desert. It suddenly emitted a strong light. When Tianyang saw this, he was slightly taken aback. This martial spirit was indeed special. Most of the members of the Bai clan possessed snake-type martial spirits. Bai Lu, Bai Xiang, and the two men in white all possessed snake-type martial spirits. However, the people before him had all condensed snake-shaped silhouettes, whereas this person had condensed a snake-shaped imprint. However, in the face of absolute strength, all of this is illusory. Tianyang chuckled. In the next moment, the fine steel sword in his hand instantly emitted a terrifying light. Flowing Cloud Shuttle. The move that killed the Silver Snake Lightning Python appeared in Tianyang's hand once again. The fine steel sword in his hand that was attached with the sky cloud, sword martial spirit shot out like an arrow. Flying sword? Seeing this, the white-clothed man could not help but cry out in shock. This is the Imperial Sword Technique. How can you know the Imperial Sword Technique? At this moment, the fine steel sword that shot out had arrived in front of the white-clothed man. It was less than an inch away from the vital point between his eyebrows. Damn it! The white-clothed man roared angrily. His fist, which was like a sand wave, directly punched towards the sky. He did not care about Tianyang, who had released the flying sword. In his opinion, Tianyang had already done his best to control the flying sword. Even if he used all his strength to deal with the flying sword, Tianyang would not be able to launch a sneak attack on him. After all, without the sole force of a cultivator at the 7th level of the body refinement realm, he would not be able to do this. Tong Ming fist, a loud cry that made one despair instantly came from behind. The white-clothed man's face suddenly turned pale. He had found an opening for flowing cloud shuttle and was almost pierced through between his eyebrows. However, that burst of sharp aura also caused a crack to appear between the white-clothed man's eyebrows. At the same time, Tianyang's fist also suddenly bombarded his back. Pooh! Fresh blood spurted out violently. The white-clothed man's figure was instantly sent flying. He rolled countless times in midair and finally crashed into a large tree before falling down. His eyes were blood-red from the fresh blood that flowed out from the crack between his eyebrows. The white-clothed man stared fixedly at Tianyang in front of him. "You definitely can't be that trash, isn't it?" Tianyang slowly came in front of him and said with a light smile. He stretched out his hand, and that fine steel sword in midair circled around and returned to Tianyang's hand. At this moment, the white-clothed man realized that Tianyang's chi and blood far exceeded theirs. It had reached the level of 250 feet. In other words, compared to Bai Lu, he was more than a level stronger. Cough, cough. Pooh! Spitting out another mouthful of fresh blood, the white-clothed man saw that Tianyang had no intention of continuing to speak. He also tilted his head dejectedly and closed his eyes as if he had breathed his last. As for Tianyang, he did not move and looked at that person with a smile. "Do you think that such crude acting can fool this emperor? See through it? Then die. Sand snake devour." The white-clothed man suddenly opened his eyes. The little bit of true essence left in his body from the beating all exploded out. His figure disappeared from the spot, and the sand snake mark on his chest also exploded with a shocking light. Seeing this, Tianyang laughed lightly. On the fine steel sword in his hand, an imperceptible lightning spread across it. In the next moment, without turning his head, he directly stabbed behind him. Pooh! The sound of a chest being pierced rang out in the silent forest. In the next moment, the white-clothed man's horrified voice slowly rang out. "How did you know?" In the next moment, the white-clothed man's heart was electrocuted by the power of the lightning and turned into charcoal. The breath in his body was also completely cut off. "How did I know?" "Because my soul is very strong. By the way, I know the art of sword manipulation. However, I can't use it now." The art of sword manipulation was extremely powerful. Even in his previous life, Tianyang had only managed to cultivate it to the greater mastery stage. The conditions required for the art of sword manipulation were even more daunting. Unparalleled soul power, equally strong swordsmanship, and at least a cultivation level of the clear chi realm. The first two were still manageable. As for the last one, even if Tianyang was the Tianji Sword Emperor, he could do nothing about it. Turning his head, Tianyang laughed lightly. In the next moment, the heavenly sword's devouring ability was slowly activated. The sand snake mark that had gradually lost its power after its master's death also trembled violently and disappeared. After devouring the sand snake martial soul, the heavenly sword also began to vibrate slightly. A gentle and dazzling light was emitted. Chapter 35. Rays of gentle, dazzling, and constantly fluctuating light were emitted from the Sky Cloud sword. At this moment, the Sky Cloud sword had separated from the body of the steel sword and condensed into an ordinary sword shadow in midair. However, Tianyang, who had personally forged it in his previous life and watched it grow into the world's #1 divine sword, understood that this ordinary long sword contained a power that was enough to shock the world. At the beginning, the Sky Cloud Sword Martial Soul, which was only a low-grade yellow-rank martial soul, welcomed its first promotion after devouring 2 complete martial souls and some martial soul energy. Boom! As if a thunderbolt from the 9th heaven exploded in the sky, waves of tyrannical pressure were emitted from the Sky Cloud sword. Then, in a short period of time, it exploded to the extreme. Even if the Silver Serpent, Lightning Serpent, or a second-stage demonic beast were to come back to life, they could only succumb to the sky cloud sword. Almost all the demonic beasts and humans on the west side of the fierce beast mountain range felt this pressure. Their faces became incomparably horrified, and even their offensive and defensive movements slowed down a lot. What is it? Is it the birth of a worldly wonder? Or is it some super strong person passing by? In the small town next to the fierce beast mountain range, Wan Gong and the other two, who had just left the fierce beast mountain range, turned around in horror and looked at the vast and boundless fierce beast mountain range. They would never have thought that the initiator of this terrifying fluctuation was Tianyang, who had saved their lives before. This is the real sky cloud sword. Seeing this, Tianyang chuckled. Although the pressure was huge, to Tianyang, it did not have the slightest bit of power. Then he stretched out his hand and grasped the sky cloud sword shadow. At this moment, the gentle and dazzling light suddenly burst into a dazzling light. As if it was a worldly wonder, it burst out with boundless xinguang, and in the next moment, it disappeared. Even the pressure that had shocked countless people was withdrawn into the sky cloud sword. Tianyang also sensed the sky cloud sword's grade now, mid-grade yellow rank. Compared to the low-grade yellow rank sword from before, it was much more powerful. Tianyang smiled in satisfaction at this. Although he did not know where the terrifying power came from, he also knew that it was at most a flash in the pan. Having been an Ascension Realm fighter for so many years, Tianyang was well aware of this. It's considered mid-grade yellow rank. Tianyang laughed, and then put the sky cloud sword in his hand back into the scabbard on his back. Next, it's time to hunt demonic beasts. Sky cloud, cloud sky, he said. Cloud, cloud, cloud sword, Tianyang. Then, Tianyang used straightest cloud leap, and in an instant, he disappeared from the spot. Soon, Tianyang's figure was nowhere to be seen in this area. It was not until a few minutes after Tianyang left that someone rushed to the place where Tianyang had been. Feeling the pressure that had long disappeared in the air, that person slapped his head in frustration. It's gone. Not even a trace of his aura. Could it be that Xinguang still has the pressure this time? Is it really just a super fighter passing by? But why would such a person come to our small snow gale? That person sighed, and then he channeled his true yuan and stepped out. His steps did not seem fast, but in fact his speed was extremely fast. In just 2 or 3 seconds, he had left this place. His true yuan aura revealed in his every movement was actually above the 6th level of the Clear Chi realm. Not long after the Clear Chi realm practitioner left, many people who had seen the dazzling light in Xinguang also came here. However, these people were at most in the Clear Chi realm, and naturally, they could not see through the disguise of a Heaven Ascension realm practitioner. They could only sigh in frustration like the previous person and leave one after another. However, as these people left, they spread the news of the sky cloud sword's advancement, which became another motivation for young people to enter the ferocious Beast Mountain range. However, this was a story for another day. Flowing cloud sword technique, Tianyang shouted, and the fine steel sword in his hand instantly burst out. He did not use the sky cloud sword, but only the quality of the fine steel sword and his mastery of the flowing cloud sword technique. He directly killed the demonic beast in front of him that was not inferior to the silver snake lightning python in the slightest. If others were to see this scene, they would definitely be dumbfounded. After all, a demonic beast like the silver snake lightning python was absolutely difficult to defeat if one was not at the top of the 9th level of the body refining realm. Tianyang was able to kill the silver snake lightning python with his strength of the 6th level of the body refining realm, and there was some element of luck involved. Now, although his cultivation had increased by 1 level, his method of killing the demonic beast was also more efficient and efficient. Start the battle, draw the sword, probe, flowing cloud, sword technique, kill. Throughout the whole process, he did not waste any time. In just a few dozen seconds, he finished the battle. The familiarity with the blade, as if it was his arm, and the mastery of the sword technique, as if he had practiced it thousands of times since he was young, was enough to make people look up to him. The Tianji Sword Emperor, who was at the peak of the Heaven Ascension realm, was this powerful. If the current me uses the Sky Sword Martial Spirit, Even if I encounter a cultivator of the clear chi stage, I can still fight. If I'm lucky, I can even kill him." Tianyang muttered to himself as he put away the vital organs that contained the essence of blood from the demonic beast's corpse in front of him. He gently stroked the blade of the fine steel sword, and the ice-cold feeling was transmitted to his brain through his fingers. Although there are many subspecies of the dragon clan, the outskirts of the fearsome Beast Mountain range are really a little too low-end. The silver snake lightning python is actually the one that contains the most dragon blood. If this is the case, I don't know how long it will take to complete the first refinement of the 9 refinements dragon body. Rubbing his chin, Tianyang pondered for a moment. Then, the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. He turned around and looked at the majestic mountain peak and the endless forest. That was the direction of the depths of the fearsome Beast Mountain range. "So, this time, at least, I have to go deeper," Tianyang said softly. At this moment, an incomparably tyrannical fluctuation came directly from the depths of the fearsome Beast Mountain range. In the blink of an eye, it spread to every inch of land on the west side of the fearsome Beast Mountain range. That terrifying fluctuation swept directly over Tianyang. Tianyang's pupils contracted slightly for a moment. That familiar feeling allowed him to immediately recognize the source of this tyrannical aura. It was the dragon chi that he was urgently looking for. At least the cultivation of the origin transformation realm. It seems that it's almost completely dead. If such a dragon died, there would definitely be a dragon pearl left behind. If he obtained the dragon pearl, then the first refinement of the 9 refinements dragon body would definitely reach the most perfect level that even the crimson dragon Wu Zun himself could not achieve. Thinking of this, Tianyang licked his lips and gripped the fine steel sword tightly. Then his figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. In the northwest direction, go straight for 10 miles. The incomparably tyrannical soul power allowed Tianyang to determine the direction of the place where the dragon died in an instant. Then his cultivation of the 7th level of the body refinement realm exploded to the extreme. His legs were very fast, and in the blink of an eye, he had traveled hundreds of meters. Chapter 36. What's going on with this aura? The expert at the 6th level of the bright chi realm, who had left earlier, frowned. He had also sensed the majestic aura that had suddenly spread throughout the entire fearsome Beast Mountain range. This aura made people tremble uncontrollably. It contained an unparalleled pressure that made all the practitioners below the transformation realm kneel down and worship it. If it weren't for the fact that they were too far away, even the expert at the 6th level of the bright chi realm would have been forced to kneel down. What happened? This aura. Could it be that a treasure has appeared in the fearsome Beast Mountain range? Since the expert at the 6th level of the bright chi realm could sense it, the rest of the practitioners could also sense it. Many of the practitioners at the 1st or 2nd level of the bright chi realm had also sensed the sudden burst of terrifying aura. Even the fearless practitioners at the outermost perimeter of the fearsome Beast Mountain range couldn't help but change their expressions as they looked into the depths of the fearsome Beast Mountain range. In their hearts, they were also thinking the same thing as the person who had exclaimed earlier. Was there really a treasure in the fearsome Beast Mountain range? Thinking of the vast Xinguang from before, many people's hearts were burning with excitement. The expert at the 6th level of the bright chi realm frowned slightly and closed his eyes. He spread out his soul force, trying to find the source of this aura. However, he was not at the peak of the Heaven Ascension realm like Tianyang. In his senses, all he could feel was the tyrannical aura all around him. Trying to find the source of the aura through its intensity was tantamount to a blind man feeling an elephant. If the expert at the 6th level of the bright chi realm could not do it, the others would not be able to sense it even if they desperately try to sense it. Whatever, in short, this majestic aura must be related to the light from before. There must be some clues about the place I went to before. The man frowned. In the next moment, he activated his true essence and suddenly disappeared from the spot. The others also came to their senses and rushed into the fearsome beast mountain range. However, running around like a headless fly, even if a god descended from the heavens, he would not be able to find the dragon pearl. At the same time, Tianyang's figure was shuttling through the forest at an extremely fast speed. This fearsome beast mountain range really lives up to its name. The deeper you go, the stronger the magical beasts are. Tianyang frowned and rubbed the wound on his right arm. The wound had already stopped bleeding, but Tianyang still had some lingering fear when he thought of the magic beast that had attacked him. If he hadn't reacted quickly and escaped the range of the magical beast attack, he would have been killed by that magical beast that was at least at the peak of his second rank. F***CK. Why are you here again? Tianyang used all his strength to push off the thick tree branches and jumped into the air. The true essence of the 7th level of the body refinement realm exploded, directly causing Tianyang's body to rise an inch in the air, dodging an incomparably dangerous attack. After landing firmly on the ground, Tianyang looked at the dense forest behind him again and heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he looked around in confusion. The place where he was almost attacked was not far away. Why didn't the demonic beast make any more movements after attacking once? According to the ferocious nature of the demonic beast, this shouldn't be the case. There must be a reason for this abnormality. Tianyang frowned slightly and then looked around. Below his feet was an extremely normal green grassland, and behind him, the dense forest that was filled with danger still stood quietly. After looking around, there were no abnormalities. In front of him, there was a small lake that appeared abruptly, but it didn't mean anything. Wait a minute, the dragon chi here has actually reached its peak. Could it be that I've arrived at the source of the dragon chi? After closing his eyes and sensing for a while, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Then, he looked at the small lake in front of him. Behind the small lake was a small mountain that was at most a few dozen meters tall. There was nothing strange about it, and below the small mountain, the clear blue lake lay there quietly. Tianyang's gaze was focused on the lake. To be precise, it was the huge figure that was like a small mountain under the lake. Dragon! Tianyang's pupils contracted slightly, and he took a step forward. Suddenly, it was as if he had entered a new world. The dragon chi that was emitted from the ordinary dragon chi seemed to have condensed into a solid form in this place. The terrifying pressure that was everywhere made Tianyang feel as if he would be ejected if he relaxed a little. This was because he had just swallowed the martial souls of 2 people from the Bai family and upgraded his sky sword to the middle grade of the yellow rank. Furthermore, he had also cultivated his blood chi to the level of 250 feet. If it was an ordinary body refining stage level 7, he wouldn't even be able to step into this area. He would be ejected directly and become the food of the demonic beasts. Oomph. A mere dragon dares to be impudent in front of me? Break. Tianyang raised his eyebrows, and in the next moment, an incomparably wild emperor's chi was released instantly. It broke through the surrounding dragon chi, and Tianyang's figure seemed to have become a supreme emperor that stood proudly between heaven and earth. People couldn't help but bow down to him. The moment this emperor's chi was released, the black figure in the small lake suddenly moved. On the surface of the lake, which was as calm as a mirror, small waves surged one after another. In the next moment, a huge figure slowly emerged from the lake. Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. The creature in front of him was a dragon. The dragon's huge eyes, which were almost half the size of a human, stared emotionlessly at Tianyang. Tianyang smiled lightly and didn't show any signs of weakness. He directly went up to meet the dragon. In the next moment, the dragon's entire body emerged from the bottom of the lake, causing waves of water to splash. The surrounding heaven and earth were also covered by water vapor. It was misty, and people couldn't see the situation clearly. In front of Tianyang, a huge crimson dragon, which was 10 feet long and 20 feet wide, soared into the sky, bringing with it a tyrannical pressure. There was some commotion in the dense forest behind him. It seemed that the appearance of the crimson dragon had caused countless demonic beasts to become chaotic. A body refining stage level 7 cultivation can actually break through my dragon chi. Who are you? The Crimson Dragon's voice suddenly rang in Tianyang's mind. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled slightly and didn't look surprised at all. Tianyang also knew how to communicate directly in his mind. However, in order to not shock the world, he had never used it after his rebirth. Then, Tianyang's lips didn't move as he replied faintly in his mind. Since you're already dying, then I will tell you my name. Chapter 37. The Tianji Sword Emperor Tianyang. Upon hearing this title, the Crimson Dragon's huge pupils shrank. How could this be? Even someone as prideful as a dragon would have heard of the Sky Pole Sword Emperor's name. During the Great Civilization Destruction 10,000 years ago, the Sky Pole Sword Emperor had risked his life to resist the heavenly tribulation. Almost every race had records of him. Tianyang was completely unaware that his extremely unlucky tribulation had been misunderstood by later generations as him risking his life to resist the heavenly tribulation for the sake of the people of the continent. You? How could this be? Don't think that just because you have some ability, you can call yourself a supreme being like the Tianji Sword Emperor. Are all the humans nowadays people like you who don't know how to respect emperors? The Crimson Dragon snorted coldly. Although the vitality in its body was constantly disappearing due to its serious injuries, a simple conversation was nothing to the Crimson Dragon right now. No, in other words, regardless of whether the Crimson Dragon spoke or not, it was about to die. Is that so? Tianyang chuckled when he heard that. The Crimson Dragon's reaction was within his expectations. Then let me ask you, do you know the nickname of your Crimson Dragon tribe's ancestor, the Crimson Dragon King from 10,000 years ago? The Crimson Dragon King. Upon hearing these 4 words, the Crimson Dragon King trembled all over. 10,000 years ago, the Crimson Dragon King that Tianyang had mentioned had given up everything in exchange for the survival of the Crimson Dragon tribe. It could be said that the Crimson Dragon King and the Tianji Sword Emperor were the 2 supreme beings of the Crimson Dragon tribe. Even within the Crimson Dragon tribe, very few people knew about the Crimson Dragon King. The Crimson Dragon King's nickname was only known to the upper echelons of the tribe. It was only because of its identity as the Imperial Dragon Son that it was able to find out about this primal transformation realm cultivator. How could this young human know about it? You? The Crimson Dragon opened its mouth slightly, as if wanting to say something. However, as soon as it opened its mouth, its vitality rapidly dissipated. The Crimson Dragon had no choice but to close its mouth. It seems that you know. Then, let me tell you. Tianyang smiled and then walked up. Ignoring the huge gap in cultivation between them, he knocked on the Red Dragon's head. Your Crimson Dragon King's nickname was given by me. Lil Red or something. It's the most adorable, right? Tianyang chuckled. He didn't think there was anything wrong with giving the king of red dragons the name Xiao Hong. As for the Crimson Dragon, he was about to flare up because of Tianyang's actions, but the moment he said the words Lil Red, his entire body trembled. Without knowing the name Little Red, no one would be able to associate it with the king of the Red Dragon. Moreover, the nickname of the king of the Red Dragon was given by the Tianji Sword Emperor 10,000 years ago. Even he did not know about this. He only knew that 10,000 years ago, before the Great Apocalypse had descended, the Celestial Pole Sword Emperor and the Crimson Dragon King traveled the world together. At that time, the Crimson Dragon King was the Celestial Pole Sword Emperor's mount. Are you really the Tianji Sword Emperor? In his mind, the Crimson Dragon's originally arrogant voice became extremely hoarse. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly, turned around, and walked back, standing with his hands behind his back. If you still don't believe me, then after Lil Red, I added a permanent mark on the Crimson Dragon's body. Generally speaking, it's not very useful, but if some dragons have a screw loose and want to learn swordsmanship, this mark should be of some use. Tianyang smiled, and as he spoke, the corners of his mouth twitched. This mark had been added by Lil Red. At that time, Tianyang had only just broken through to the Heaven Ascension state and was far from being the strongest person on the continent. However, for some reason, the king of the Red Dragon, Lil Red, had asked Tianyang to add a permanent mark on the Crimson Dragon clan. Even now, Tianyang still did not understand why a dragon would want a human sword mark. However, this mark had indeed been passed down. Tianyang could also sense the fluctuations of the mark in the crimson dragon in front of him. Although the fluctuations were very faint, the soul of a heaven ascension state was not to be trifled with. How do you know that you really are the Tianji Sword Emperor? If Lil Red had only made the crimson dragon a little suspicious before, then the appearance of the mark immediately made the crimson dragon turn pale with fright. This mark, as Tianyang had said, was actually useless. However, thousands of years ago, a tyrannical crimson dragon whose strength had reached the peak of the Dao Fire state had appeared in the Crimson Dragon clan. That crimson dragon just so happened to be the sword used by a crazy person. Once this sword-wielding crimson dragon expert appeared, there were naturally many dragons who imitated him. The other dragons naturally didn't have any achievements, but the Crimson Dragon clan had many achievements. Later on, when the Crimson Dragon expert's strength reached a higher level, he discovered that there was an additional Sword Dao imprint from the Celestial Pole Sword Emperor on the Crimson Dragon clan's race imprint. This secret was even more shocking than Lil Red's name. Although the degree of secrecy was similar, and only the Crimson Dragon clan might know about it. The others, even the Red Dragons who were close to it, were completely unaware. In the human race, besides the Tianji Sword Emperor, it was absolutely impossible for anyone else to know about it. Lord Tianji, Sword Emperor. The Crimson Dragon shouted, and Tianyang felt as if a bomb had exploded in his head. His entire head felt buzzing, and the Crimson Dragon's huge dragon eyes were filled with incomparable reverence. My lord, I didn't know your identity before and offended you. Please forgive me, Lord Sword Emperor. Regardless of the fact that the young man in front of him was only at the 7th level of the body refinement state, the Crimson Dragon did not hesitate to bow down and perform the highest etiquette of the Crimson Dragon clan. This etiquette had never been performed on a human before. However, to the actual leader of the Crimson Dragon clan 10,000 years ago, the Tianji Sword Emperor, not only was this etiquette acceptable, but it was also somewhat inappropriate. After all, the highest etiquette was the highest, but to an existence of the Tianji Sword Emperor's level, it was still a little too light. Why are you suddenly shouting? Tianyang rubbed his ears and said unhappily. Then, he looked at the Crimson Dragon in front of him with a somewhat complicated expression. He originally thought that the dragon who was about to die here was just an ordinary dragon, and he could not be bothered to care about it if it died. However, if it was a Crimson Dragon, then he had to care. Originally, I didn't intend to care about your matters. If you weren't from the Crimson Dragon clan, I definitely would have stood aside and watched. Chapter 38. Because I've been cursed. Tianyang's indifferent voice slowly came out of his mouth. Hearing this, the Red Dragon's entire body shook violently. Even if the young man in front of it was really the Tianji Sword Emperor from 10,000 years ago, he was only at the 7th level of the body refining realm. How could he see through the changes in its body? However, when it thought of Tianyang's identity as the Tianji Sword Emperor, the Red Dragon's heart relaxed. How could such a person be judged by common sense? It was likely that the Tianji Sword Emperor had used some kind of ancient magical power to cause it to become like this. The great destruction of civilization 10,000 years ago was really too terrifying. Even the Red Dragon King, who was only a step away from the peak of the Heaven Ascension realm, died under the streaks of lightning. Although the Tianji Sword Emperor was already the #1 emperor at the peak of the Heaven Ascension realm in the mainland, it was difficult for him to escape from that incomparably vast heavenly tribulation. Now that he was able to survive, it was possible that his cultivation had regressed. However, how could his eyesight have regressed? Thinking of this, the Red Dragon's originally very respectful expression became even more subdued. Then, it said respectfully, I hope that the Sword Emperor can lend a hand and save my life. If I return to the Red Dragon clan in the future, I will definitely make the entire Red Dragon clan acknowledge you as their master once again. There's no need. Tianyang did not have any thoughts about his identity as the master of the Red Dragon clan. Although he had the ability to control the entire Red Dragon clan in his previous life, he had never interfered in the affairs of the Red Dragon clan. Since you are the descendant of Little Red, then it's only right that I lend a hand. If I'm not wrong, this curse of yours was left behind from the battle with the peak of the transformation realm in the western region of the mainland. Tianyong laughed lightly. Then, he said something that made the Red Dragon extremely shocked. If he had guessed correctly who its opponent was, then it would have been fine. However, Tianyong had actually guessed clearly where the opponent was from. In other words, Tianyong's eyesight was much stronger than it had imagined. In my previous life, I fought many people from the western region of the continent. I have a deep impression of this kind of insidious curse. Fortunately, the person who put the curse on you is of similar strength to you. Otherwise, I would not be able to do anything. Tianyong said. Hearing this, the Crimson Dragon's pupils suddenly dilated to the extreme. In the eyes of the Golden Dragon, it looked particularly terrifying. However, in Tianyong's mind, Crimson Dragon almost lost his composure. Sir Sword Emperor, do you really have a way? Please save my life. Initially, even though Qi Long was extremely convinced of Tianyong's identity, he could not help but be worried as he was only at the 7th level of the body refinement stage. And now, Tianyong was so sure that he could save her. Then, he could definitely save her. How could the judgment of an emperor be wrong about a small primordial transformation stage, Crimson Dragon? That's right. Tianyong laughed. Those weird fellows from the western region are very good at curses and venomous spells. However, in my opinion, they are still somewhat unorthodox. Crimson Dragons are of the fire attribute. Since you are hiding in the water, I think this curse must be restrained by water. However, I don't have the conditions to look for something like holy water. Therefore, I can only use a more violent method. Violent. The Crimson Dragon was taken aback. It blinked its large eyes and stared fixedly at the sun in front of it. Violence? What kind of violent method? Even though Tianyong was very powerful, he was not powerful in terms of attack power. No matter how strong he was at the 7th level of the body refinement stage, it was impossible for him to forcefully break the life curse of a primordial transformation stage practitioner. I left an imprint in your body. Even though this imprint is useless except for some non-mainstream effects in your Crimson Dragon clan, there is still a trace of my imprint left behind. However, there is a trace of this Emperor's aura remaining in it. Through this trace of aura, I'm able to perform some techniques. Tianyong laughed. As for what methods, it was naturally his soul energy at the peak of the heavenly completion stage. Originally, if he wanted to forcefully open it, he would definitely be heavily injured and on the verge of death. However, if he had a trace of his aura as a guide, then opening the soul energy would not require too much effort. At most, he would be weak for a period of time. For Xiao Hong's descendants, this period of weakness was nothing. An imprint can also release the power to break the life curse of a primordial transformation stage practitioner. Qi Long was stunned. Then he began to speculate. The master, my ancestor from 10,000 years ago, was indeed not an ordinary person. This imprint that does not have the slightest bit of power can actually turn something rotten into something magical. However, I have one request. When you leave after your injuries have healed, you must not spread the news that this emperor is still alive. Absolutely not. Tianyong said with a serious expression. Hearing this, Qi Long nodded heavily. Then, as if it had decided on something, it began to chant in a mysterious and strange tone. I swear on my dragon soul. In the future, if there is a day when I spread the news that the Tianji Sword Emperor Tianyong is still alive in this world without the permission of the Tianji Sword Emperor, I shall be struck by lightning, my dragon soul shattered, and I shall never be able to reincarnate. A dragon soul oath. This was an oath made with Qi Long's dragon soul. If it was broken, the punishment would be even crueler than what Qi Long had said in the oath. Once it was made, it cannot be broken. By swearing on its dragon soul, the Qi Long had proved its trust in Tianyong. In response, Tianyong smiled gently. Walking forward, he placed his palm on Qi Long's forehead. The imprint appeared without any movement from Qi Long, feeling the extremely familiar aura. Tianyang grinned. The spiritual strength that had been sealed in his spirit sea began to stir. In the next instant, Tianyang gave a soft roar. The terrifying spiritual strength of a heavenly completion stage pinnacle was revealed. Boom! A terrifying xingguang truly exploded from Tianyang's mind. Then, it was completely controlled by Tianyang, turning into an extremely sharp sword that could pierce through anything. A mere curse. In front of this emperor's sword, it can only be destroyed. Tianyang gave a cold roar. Then, Qilong's body seemed to feel a fatal threat. Strange dark green chains appeared on Qilong's dragon scales. A sliver of a painful expression appeared on Qilong's face. It's actually a life curse made with life sacrifice? Ha! You're actually able to force the old faker of the western regions to such a state. Kid, you're really something. Now, let's take a good look at how this curse is broken. Tianyang laughed softly. Then, he waved the extremely sharp sword condensed from spiritual strength in his hand. The dark green chains exploded with a terrifying radiance. However, under the envelopment of the white radiance, they turned into dust in an instant. Chapter 39. Streaks of dark green light flickered and trembled violently. It was like a low-quality flashlight without electricity. Ghosts even emerged from the chains that were about to break. Incomparably mournful screams came out of the ghosts' mouths, mixed with terrifying and sharp soul attacks. In response, Tianyang only smiled faintly. It's been 10,000 years, and you're still using this kind of trick to scare people when you can't beat them. I didn't expect that the group of old swindlers in the western region still hadn't made any progress after 10,000 years. Whatever, it's just the life curse of a mere peak transformed realm martial artist. Break it for this emperor, Tianyang shouted. In the next moment, the soul sword in his hand suddenly exploded with a shocking light. Qilong's face revealed a trace of pain. The true yuan of the peak transformed realm in his body was also forcefully activated by him. Even if his cultivation was only at the peak transformed realm, he still had to help, even if it was just a little bit. Sensing Qilong's thoughts, Tianyang revealed a trace of a smile. Then the soul strength that didn't have much time left completely exploded. The ghosts that were emitting a terrifying dark green light instantly opened their mouths and let out mournful screams after Tianyang's soul strength exploded. Then, they were crushed into powder by this terrifying power. As for the chains, after the ghost's final trump card exploded, they no longer had the ability to resist. Now that the ghosts were crushed, the life curse no longer had any chance to resist and completely dissipated. As the chains turned to ashes, the life force that had been restrained in the Crimson Dragon's body completely erupted. The life force in the Crimson Dragon's body was constantly being eroded by the curse of life. Even if the Crimson Dragon did his best and even found a better place to repair it, he was powerless. He could only watch his life force disappear bit by bit. The feeling of having one's life force being slowly stripped away without any way to save it, and one could only watch as one's own life force gradually approached death, was the most despairing feeling. The Crimson Dragon had been like this before, which was why Tianyang had sensed waves of anger. However, it was also thanks to Qilong's angry roar that attracted Tianyang. Otherwise, Qilong could only sullenly die in this fearsome beast mountain range, unable to fly in the sky anymore. Now, Tianyang's arrival had successfully saved Qilong's life. Although a considerable part of his life force had been eroded before, with the tyrannical talent of the Dragon Clan, it didn't take much effort to recover this loss of life force. Roar! As if it had been liberated, the red dragon, which had been lying on the ground, suddenly soared into the air and circled countless times in the air. Then, it roared towards the sky. The sound of a dragon's roar was not concealed at all. It shocked the entire fearsome Beast Mountain range, causing the forest to tremble. The magical beasts in the forest were also shaken by the terrifying pressure from the King of Beasts. The people who were training in the periphery of the fearsome Beast Mountain range also felt the terrifying aura and pressure of one of the kings of the fearsome Beast Mountain range. Their faces changed dramatically. The middle-aged man at the 6th level of the Bright Chi realm, who wanted to step into the depths of the fearsome Beast Mountain range, also couldn't help but change his expression. This roar, it's actually from the Dragon Clan. Could it be that the powerful aura and the shocking xinguang from before were emitted by the Dragon Clan? Fortunately, I realized it now. Otherwise, with the tyranny and strength of the Dragon Clan, I would definitely die if I went there. What bad luck today, a powerful Dragon Clan actually passed through the fearsome Beast Mountain range. The middle-aged man at the Bright Chi realm stopped at the edge of the depths of the fearsome Beast Mountain range. He had originally lifted his foot, but now he slowly withdrew it. There was no doubt that this roar was a dragon's roar. According to the tyranny of the Dragon Clan, the entire depths of the fearsome Beast Mountain range was now temporarily under the control of the Dragon Clan. If he stepped into its territory, it would be trespassing on its territory. Angering the Dragon Clan was not a big deal. However, if he, as a weakling, angered a Dragon Clan that was much more tyrannical than himself, then he would be courting death. His mouth rattled off analysis after analysis. The more he analyzed, the uglier his face became. Then he immediately withdrew his foot, turned around, and left without looking back. There was actually a Dragon Clan in the fearsome Beast Mountain range. Then, whoever wanted to come here to court death could come. Other people might not be able to recognize what kind of powerful demonic beast this roar came from. However, even a weakling at the 3rd level of the body, refining realm, could sense the terror within. Therefore, in the originally bustling western periphery of the fearsome Beast Mountain range, more than half of the people scattered like birds and beasts in a short period of time. The remaining people were also very careful when exploring, afraid of angering the demonic beast that had erupted with a terrifying aura. No one knew that in the depths of the fearsome Beast Mountain range, in a small lake, a peak 3rd level crimson dragon and a young man who was only at the 7th level of the body, refining realm, were standing opposite each other. I, A.O. Ling, will never forget Sir Sword Emperor's life-saving grace. If the Sword Emperor has any requests in the future, I, A.O. Ling, will definitely go through water and tread on fire without hesitation. The Crimson Dragon A.O. Ling said loudly. Hearing this, Tianyong also nodded and then muttered, "So your name is A.O. Ling. Your name is not very good. It's not as artistic as my name, Xiao Hong." Hearing this, A.O. Ling, who was soaring in the air, almost fell down as if he was struck by lightning. The corner of his mouth twitched, and then he soared into the air. "Sir Sword Emperor, I was about to die under the life curse, so I used the Dragon Clan's secret technique to pass down my last words to the clan. I'm afraid the clan is going to riot now. I have to go back now. I hope Sir Sword Emperor can forgive me," A.O. Ling said. Hearing this, Tianyong also nodded. "You passed down your last words. You really have a pessimistic sense. Then hurry up and go. Otherwise, it won't be good if you die." Hearing this, A.O. Ling's body swayed again, and he almost fell down. He then secretly cursed. This Sir Sword Emperor is really honest. It's just as the ancestors said, he doesn't know how to speak. However, I, A.O. Ling, will definitely repay Sir Sword Emperor for saving my life. This dragon pearl was condensed from all my life's vitality before I died. Although it's far from being enough to repay Sir Sword Emperor for saving my life, I hope Sir Sword Emperor will accept this as a token of my appreciation," A.O. Ling said solemnly. Then, rays of light condensed on his chest. A fist-sized spherical object that emitted waves of tyrannical waves appeared in his dragon claw. Seeing this, Tianyong was slightly stunned. Then he took A.O. Ling's dragon pearl and opened his mouth. Just as he was about to say something, A.O. Ling did not seem to give Tianyong a reason to reject him. He immediately activated his true yuan and flew into the sky. "Sir Sword Emperor, we'll meet again someday." After leaving this sentence, the Crimson Dragon's figure suddenly became a small black dot in the distance like a flying shuttle, and then disappeared from sight. Tianyang only reacted at this moment. He smiled and shook his head. Then he looked at the crimson dragon pearl in his hand. Waves of flames undulated on the surface like the corona of the sun. Majestic and powerful energy brewed within it. Traces of dragon chi were also released. If it was placed outside, it would definitely be a treasure that could cause 9th-level bright chi realm or even essence transformation realm experts to fight for it. The essence of the dragon power inside was even more refined than the so-called dragon blood. Chapter 40. Dragon blood was the condensation of the essence of dragon power. The first refinement of the 9 refinements dragon body was to use the essence of dragon power to refine the cultivator's physical body and achieve the first refinement of the 9 refinements dragon body. In the scroll in Tianyang's mind, the first refinement was called the Earth Dragon Body by Crimson Dragon Wuzun. The Earth Dragon was a type of alternative dragon, but its strength was not inferior to an ordinary true dragon. For it to be named after the Earth Dragon, one could see how powerful the first refinement was. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth here is not bad. With the suppression of A.O. Ling's dragon aura, ordinary magical beasts would not dare to come here. It is much better than other places in the fearsome Beast Mountain range. He sized up the surrounding situation. The grassland, the small mountain, and the small lake. Other than the fact that the surrounding dragon aura was a little too dense, the rest was simply the best place to cultivate. In that case, let's cultivate here and strive to break through to the 9th level of the body, refinement realm. Tianyang muttered. Then he came to the place with the densest spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the foot of the small mountain. In front of him was a pool of sparkling water that made one feel comfortable. Then Tianyang sat down cross-legged. The true essence in his body slowly circulated along the spiral meridians. Then he used the divine wilderness heaven spirit art. The dragon ball in Tianyang's hand disappeared in an instant and came to Tianyang's dantian. The moment it came into contact with Tianyang's true essence, it exploded with an incomparably terrifying energy. It was as if a ball of true essence had exploded in Tianyang's body. The terrifying impact of the energy explosion and the equally terrifying high temperature directly caused Tianyang's expression to change slightly. However, Tianyang was the Tianji Sword Emperor after all. How could the strongest person on the continent at the peak of the Heaven Ascension realm be afraid of such pain? The dragon power essence required for the first refinement is not much. It is only 1% of the Dragon Ball. Next, it should be enough to cultivate the second and third refinements. Tianyang said slowly in his heart. The corners of his mouth curved into a smile. When he entered the ferocious Beast Mountain range, he was only looking for materials to cultivate the Earth Dragon body. Unexpectedly, this trip to the fearsome Beast Mountain range allowed him to find all the dragon power essences he needed for the first to third refinement. Now refined, Tianyang shouted, and the quintessential essence in his body began to circulate wildly. In the next moment, the dragon pearl that was constantly erupting with powerful energy was directly surrounded by Tianyang's quintessential essence. The golden light that appeared when he was refining the power of thunder and lightning appeared again, suppressing the eruption of the dragon pearl's vital essence. Then, without hesitation, Tianyang immediately mobilized his vital essence and began to devour a part of the dragon aura. Hiss! As soon as he began to devour, Tianyang could not help but hiss out a cold breath and clench his teeth. The dragon power that Tianyang had devoured was now wreaking havoc in Tianyang's body. It was almost rampaging. Every part of the dragon aura would release its energy and burn the tissues and cells in Tianyang's body. It was as if his nerves were twitching. The incomparable pain was directly transmitted to Tianyang's brain. On the other hand, Tianyang's body did not tremble in the slightest. He continued to maintain his cross-legged posture. His true essence, which had paused for a moment due to the sudden eruption of dragon chi, once again surged forward. With a speed much faster than before, he began to refine the dragon chi. If I can't even refine this little dragon aura of yours, then how can I be called the Tianji Sword Emperor? The corner of Tianyang's mouth curled into a smile. Then, his expression became serious again. The spiral meridians slowly trembled. The quintessential essence of the seventh level of the body refinement realm was poured into refining the dragon aura without reservation. The quintessential essence was like a tide that constantly surged towards the dragon aura. Then it was completely evaporated. Tianyang's expression did not change. He released his soul power and mobilized another batch of quintessential essence to charge over. With every charge, every time it was evaporated, the dissipated quintessential essence would contain a trace of dragon aura that had assimilated with the quintessential essence. Then, it escaped into Tianyang's body and strengthened Tianyang's physical strength. This was Tianyang's strategy to refine the dragon aura. A dragon was a dragon, and a human was a human. There is almost no similarity between them. Therefore, without overwhelming absolute strength, it was absolutely impossible for a human to directly devour the dragon pearl. Therefore, Tianyang could only use this indirect strategy. However, if it were someone else, even if they had the dragon pearl in their hands, they would be helpless because they did not have the key to the treasure chest lock. Relying on their strength to directly devour the dragon aura, they would smash the lock open. Tianyang's method was to find a metal wire and directly pry the lock open. The dragon aura is about to be saturated. It's time for the real body refinement. Tianyang, who was focused on refining the dragon aura with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth was suddenly stirred up, and a ray of light burst out from Tianyang's eyes. In the next moment, Tianyang's body also started to transform into a dragon because he had absorbed too much dragon aura. Tianyang was not surprised by this at all. When the Earth Dragon Constitution was used, there would be some mutation. This mutation could also greatly strengthen Tianyang's defense. It could be said that if he successfully cultivated the first refinement of the 9 refinements dragon body, even if Tianyang stood there and let an opponent of the same level attack him, the opponent would not be able to break through Tianyang's defense at all. However, the current Tianyang was just a step away from successfully cultivating the first refinement. The dragon aura in his body had already reached a saturated level. The next step was to truly refine this dragon aura into Tianyang's own. The dragonization caused by the excessive absorption of dragon aura would also disappear after Tianyang succeeded in cultivating the second refinement. However, the defensive power it brought would be even stronger. Fire of dragon refinement, burn! Tianyang roared, and the yuan power in his body instantly exploded. In the next moment, it directly ignited the powerful flame that was strong enough to refine the dragon aura. The flame was golden like a divine fire and directly enveloped Tianyang. The terrifying heat even caused the lake water, which was 10 meters away from Tianyang, to ripple violently as if it was boiling. Sitting cross-legged in the center of the flame, Tianyang's face became slightly distorted. The dragon aura in his body seemed to have sensed a fatal threat. Even though it did not have any consciousness, it also began to riot wildly. The fire of dragon refinement outside would not be reduced because of the riot of dragon aura. On the contrary, in order to refine the riot of dragon aura, the fire of dragon refinement required a higher amount of yuan power. Its power also became stronger. The dragon aura raged from the inside while the flames burned from the outside, being attacked from the inside and outside. Even Tianyang's face was distorted. If an ordinary person were to experience such pain, they would not even be able to endure for a second before vomiting blood and dying. The Red Dragon tribe is the subordinate of my mount. You dare to rebel with just the dragon aura of a red dragon? Tianyang roared, and then his soul power exploded. The riot of dragon aura was immediately suppressed by the tyrannical aura of a heaven ascension realm emperor. At this moment, the fire of dragon refinement also found an opportunity and rushed forward. The flame fluctuated wildly, and the dragon aura, which had lost its ability to resist, gradually became Tianyang's existence under the burning. Tianyang's qi and blood also increased rapidly at a speed that would leave ordinary people dumbfounded. 8th level of the body, refinement realm. 9th level of the body, refinement realm. Qi and blood, 300 feet. 450 feet. Chapter 41. 7,790 feet, perfect state. Tianyang's surrounding blood qi had also reached an extremely powerful state. In addition, no one in the Lingyun sect had ever achieved such a terrifying level of blood qi. If an ordinary person were to see this, they would definitely be shocked to the point that their eyeballs would pop out. The importance of blood qi in the body refinement realm was well known, and the perfect number was 7,790 feet. However, knowing was one thing, and achieving it was another. Tianyang, who went from the 7th level of the body refinement realm with a blood qi of 250 feet to the 9th level of the body refinement realm with a blood qi of 7,790 feet, was almost unprecedented. After all, Tianyang was the only person who could cultivate a low-grade heaven-level martial skill in the body refinement realm and cultivate it to the large success realm of the first stage. The surrounding blood qi, other than its huge diameter, also had a shocking advantage. This blood qi was not only purer than Tianyang's in his previous life, but there were also tiny blood qi dragons surging on it, faintly emitting the aura of the king of beasts. Within the blood qi, there was actually dragon qi. Who would have thought that my luck in my previous life was off the charts? The treasures of heaven and earth I just obtained were easily surpassed in this life. Although Tianyang did not turn his head to look, he knew that his blood qi had already reached the limit of the 9th level of the body refinement realm. Next, he only needed to consolidate his cultivation and accumulate blood qi to break through to the clear qi realm. The clear qi realm was free from the shackles of the body refinement realm that required a large amount of blood qi. One could directly absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to strengthen one's body. Moreover, one's battle strength would also be greatly improved. Furthermore, the stronger and purer one's qi of blood in the body refining realm, the greater one's qi of blood would be when one reaches the qi clarity realm. Take Tianyang, for example. If he were to break through to the qi clarity realm, he would be able to start practicing some of the profound martial arts from his previous life. Furthermore, even if he was only at the 1st level of the qi clarity realm, he would be able to defeat a 3rd level qi clarity realm expert. There were 9 levels in the radiant qi realm, and the difference in strength between each level was huge. For a normal genius, to be able to challenge someone of a higher level was already an incredible feat, although 490 feet of blood qi is already a kind of limit. Tianyang was still sitting cross-legged at the same spot. He frowned slightly as he looked at the enormous bloody aura around him and said, "However, the power of the Earth Dragon body and my control over my body are far from the limit." The Earth Dragon body was a low-grade heaven-tier martial skill, the first refinement of the 9 refined dragon body. This kind of martial skill was originally meant for people above the clear qi realm to cultivate. It was already a miracle that Tianyang was able to cultivate in the refinement realm and not explode. Moreover, he had successfully cultivated the Earth Dragon constitution to the great accomplishment stage. However, the might of the Earth Dragon physique was far more than just 490 feet of blood qi. How could a low-grade heaven-tier martial skill only be like this? Then, when the 50 great Daos is missing, if I were to make up for these 50, what would happen? The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up slightly as he chuckled. He did not feel that his thoughts were deviant at all. In the eyes of normal people, reaching 490 feet of blood qi was already the luckiest of the luckiest. However, Tianyang was not satisfied and wanted to break the limit of the martial skill realm that had existed for hundreds of thousands of years. He was simply a madman. However, who was Tianyang? He was the strongest person in the continent 10,000 years ago, a sword practitioner at the peak of the heavenly ascension realm, the Tianji Sword Emperor. So what if he broke the limit? So what if he deviated from path? If no one dared, then Tianyang would be the first. Then Earth Dragon Body, explode for me. The inner Yuan in his body slowly circulated. Then, in his organs and countless cells, the dragon chi that had been devoured gathered into a trace of the Earth Dragon's power, becoming Tianyang's sharp sword. And in the Sea of Soul, with the heavenly sword as the commander, the boundless soul force began to attack that supreme realm. It was as if the world had changed color because of Tianyang's actions. Boundless pressure descended on Tianyang's body, as if it wanted to scatter all of Tianyang's power. At this moment, the soul of the peak of the heavenly ascension realm, which was enough to contend against the heavenly tribulation, suddenly erupted. The eruption of Shunguang directly enveloped Tianyang's body, and the boundless pressure was blocked outside. At this moment, Tianyang also laughed lightly. In my domain, even the heavens can only be trampled under my feet, a limit that no one has ever surpassed. Now let me Tianyang break it. Tianyang gave a low shout. Then all the power that could be mobilized was mobilized by Tianyang. The dragon pearl in his body began to rapidly revolve, releasing streams of dragon chi. Tianyang didn't reject any of it, and swallowed all of it, turning it into an enormous amount of true yuan, which rushed towards that sturdy barrier that could cause countless peerless geniuses to despair. Originally, it was an almost indestructible barrier. At this moment, after the soul of the peak of the heavenly ascension realm was forced out by the power of the heavenly ascension realm, it seemed to have lost its support and became much weaker. Under the impact, cracks seemed to have appeared on that barrier. The feeling of true perfection suddenly appeared in Tianyang's heart. 790 feet? Perfect realm? Bullshit. At most, it's a pseudo-perfect realm. Only by completing this 1 foot and reaching the realm of 500 feet can it be considered true perfection. A trace of understanding suddenly appeared in his heart. Tianyang grinned, and then gave a loud shout. All the true yuan in his body began to boil, and the pressure of the heavenly ascension realm also increased by countless times. It was as if it was going to tear apart Tianyang's domain. However, before this, Tianyang had already torn that barrier apart. The blood chi that Tianyang emitted in the surroundings also expanded by 1 foot in an instant. At this moment, the pressure of the heavenly ascension realm suddenly disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by the boundless blessing of the heavenly Tao, which descended upon Tianyang's soul. In his dantian, Tianyang was slightly taken aback when he saw this. When this blessing met the heavenly sword, it was swallowed up by it without hesitation. Originally, it was still incomparably far away from the upper grade of the yellow rank, but now it had shortened by quite a bit. And when it met Tianyang's true yuan, it became a part of his true yuan, strengthening Tianyang's already extremely tyrannical true yuan countless times more. 50 great Daos. This is the blessing of breaking through the limit. Feeling the changes in his soul and true yuan, he was also somewhat dumbfounded. Then, his entire body's strength suddenly changed. The blood chi and true yuan that originally needed to be consolidated actually. Chapter 42. Whoosh. A figure quickly shuttled through the dense forest. From time to time, he would lightly tap on the branches and bend them slightly. Then, he would quickly dash away again. Soon after, angry roars of beasts came from behind. One after another, ferocious-looking magical beasts came to the original location of the figure. In the end, they had no effect at all. This was because the figure had already used a speed that was impossible for a 9th-level body refinement realm cultivator to reach. Even if these magical beasts had the strength of a 2nd-level body refinement realm cultivator, it was impossible for them to catch up. Roar! An angry rhinoceros magical beast roared at the sky. Then, it suddenly smashed out with its hoof. The 10-meter-tall tree could not withstand the terrifying power and collapsed with a loud bang. The instigator that caused so many magical beasts to rage had already left. How could he give these magical beasts a chance to take revenge? 2nd-level body refinement realm cultivators are everywhere in the depths of the fearsome Beast Mountain range. 1st-level body refinement realm cultivators are inferior to dogs. Standing on the crown of a large tree, Tianyong looked at the place where the magical beast roared from afar and muttered. At this moment, he still maintained his cultivation at the peak of the 9th level body refinement realm. Although it could be said that he had reached the supreme body refinement realm, if he went out for 10 days and returned to the sect, the people of the sect would definitely cause a commotion. Then, the people of the Lingyun sect would definitely cause a sensation. If Tianyong was sliced into pieces, then it would be troublesome. However, there are many magical beasts, so there are many treasures. Although I don't need them now, this body-tempering pill will be useful after I reach the supreme body refinement realm. Tianyong chuckled. In his hand, a perfectly round medicinal pill lay quietly. This was a 2nd-level medicinal pill that he had recently refined. With his cultivation at the supreme body refinement realm, refining a 2nd-level medicinal pill was not difficult. However, this body-tempering pill was not very useful for Tianyong, who had reached the supreme body refinement realm. However, it would definitely be useful in the future. As for the 10 blood chi pills, he had already used a lot when he was cultivating in the sect. Before he obtained the Dragon Ball, he had already used all of them. Therefore, there was no sign of them being wasted. The body-tempering pill was one of the more practical 2nd-grade pills. Although it did not require a large amount of chi and blood to cultivate during the clear chi state, it was still very necessary for the cultivation of the physical body. This body-tempering pill was precisely used to cultivate the physical body. Tianyong planned to consume it after returning to the Lingyun sect. If he was lucky, his Earth Dragon body would also reach the complete realm. As for the energy recovery pills, more than half of them had been consumed in the previous battle. Currently, there was only one left, and it was estimated that it would not be used for long. The harvest from this trip to the fearsome Beast Mountain range is really not small. I have also reached the peak of the 9th level of the body refinement realm. It is time to return to the sect. Tianyong chuckled and turned around. With a leap, he left the boundary between the depths and the periphery and arrived at the periphery. At the same time, bastard, how could there be a 2nd-rank magical beast in the outer region? About 3 miles away from Tianyong, a group of people looked at the huge scarlet python in front of them with incomparable fear. The person who seemed to be the leader was staring at the huge python. The long spear in his hand also trembled as his arm trembled. The true origin of the 9th level of the body refinement realm condensed on it. But was it of any use? Even the weakest 2nd-rank magical beast was far from what an ordinary 9th level of the body refinement realm like him could contend against. Even if he used all his strength, he was afraid that he would only be able to delay their deaths by a little. As the leader of the guards, Wang Chong was already like this. The others were even more unbearable. The banner of the 10,000 Medicines Pavilion at the front of the herb-gathering cart was now very tattered. Many of the guards had already suffered serious injuries. There were even some whose arms had been broken and were lying in the cart on the verge of death. Next to Wang Chong, a pleasant-looking girl leaned against the front of the cart and trembled. She completely did not expect that just a routine monthly herb gathering would actually provoke a magical beast of this level. It's a scarlet demonic python. Fortunately, it's only an infant. Otherwise, when it grows up, it may become a 3rd-rank magical beast. If it reaches that stage, our herb-gathering team will be destroyed in one move. Wang Chong clenched his teeth and forced his voice not to tremble. However, there was a trace of sadness in his words. Even if it was only an infant scarlet demonic python, so what? A 2nd-rank magical beast was equivalent to a human practitioner in the clear chi realm. Although he was at the 9th level of the body refinement realm, the gap between him and the clear chi realm was like the difference between heaven and earth. Encountering this scarlet demonic python was a dead end. The only difference between an infant and an adult was how long they could live. If that young man comes, it's impossible. Xiaoyan trembled as she looked at the scarlet demonic python in front of her. It seemed that it was not in a hurry to kill all of them. In her heart, she thought of the indifferent young man in the 10,000 Medicines Pavilion. Then, she smiled bitterly and shook her head. Originally, She just came out with the herb-gathering team to gain experience. She did not expect to encounter such an unexpected disaster. As for young Master Xiao, he was seriously injured by the scarlet demonic python's first round of attack. Although his life was not in danger, he could only lie in the herb-gathering cart, unable to move. At this time, the scarlet demonic python seemed to be tired of playing. It opened its bloody mouth, and a second-rank magical beast pressure suddenly enveloped the entire herb-gathering team. Feeling this pressure, Wang Chong's face showed a trace of despair. Then, he clenched the long spear in his hand and suddenly took a step forward. "Hey, you know someone?" At this time, a puzzled young man's voice came from the side. Wang Chong's body suddenly stiffened. Then, he turned his head and saw a young man standing not far away, walking towards them. "Go quickly!" Wang Chong did not think and directly shouted angrily. "Go quickly if you don't want to die." The scarlet demonic python was about a few hundred meters away from this young man. As long as he risked his life, he should be able to save him. The herb-gathering team could no longer be protected. However, Wang Chong absolutely could not let an innocent person be implicated by him. Die! Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned again. Then, he turned his head and looked up at the scarlet demonic python. Scarlet demonic python? At this time, the scarlet demonic python also heard Tianyang's voice. It turned its head, and its ferocious, bloody mouth happened to be facing Tianyang. Its whole body's muscles also tightened. Above its fangs, there seemed to be blood dripping down. Its emotionless snake eyes also looked at Tianyang. "Not good. Go quickly." Seeing that the scarlet demonic python had noticed Tianyang, Wang Chong did not care about anything else and roared, "Bastard! Even if I lose my life, I will let you see blood. Pay with your life for my brothers." The long spear in his hand suddenly burst out a shocking light. The true essence in his body began to circulate crazily. This Wang Chong, unexpectedly, wanted to risk his life for a blow. Rays of light burst out from Wang Chong's hand. At this time, Wang Chong's roar suddenly came out. "Young man, run quickly." At this time, Tianyang also met the scarlet demonic python's eyes. Chapter 43. What's going on? Wang Chong was stunned when he saw the scarlet demon python trembling all of a sudden. However, the attack that he had accumulated to the limit burst out at this moment. "Hiss!" The scarlet demon python looked up to the sky and hissed. The defense that Wang Chong couldn't shake was penetrated so easily. Blood spurted out and even fell on Wang Chong. Wang Chong was completely stunned when he saw this. When did the scarlet demon python's defense become so weak? It was a second-level magical beast that was equivalent to a practitioner in the aura illuminating realm. But now, the bloody and brutal red blood demon python didn't have time to think about hurting Wang Chong. It hurriedly turned around and dashed toward the depths of the forest at a speed much faster than when it came here. Hey, the dragon blood in the scarlet demon python's body is really good. No wonder it was suppressed by my pressure. Tianyang naturally understood the reason for the scarlet demon python's change. It was very simple. The scarlet demon python's body was similar to the silver snake electric python's, both of which had a trace of dragon blood. Not only did he have dragon blood, but he also had the dragon pearl above the dragon blood. Moreover, he had refined a trace of dragon chi into his body and cultivated the earth dragon body. The aura he emitted was no different from that of some members of the dragon clan. Therefore, the scarlet demon python's IQ was so low that it directly judged Tianyang as a member of the dragon clan. Coupled with the pressure from the depths of its blood, the scarlet demon python's combat power was greatly reduced. It lost its will to fight and stayed where it was. Without Wang Chong's attack, the scarlet demon python would have stayed where it was and been killed by Tianyang. However, Tianyang didn't bother to find trouble with the scarlet demon python. Since he had obtained A.O. Ling's dragon pearl, he didn't need to hunt magical beasts with dragon blood. The scarlet demon python had run away. Why did the beast run away? From Tianyang's appearance to the scarlet demon python's escape, only a few seconds had passed. The speed of the incident made Wang Chong very surprised. He had wanted to fight the scarlet demon python to the death, but he didn't expect that the scarlet demon python would run away as soon as he made a move. There were no other powerful magical beasts around them. It was impossible for them to scare the scarlet demon python. The only change was the young man who suddenly appeared and was walking towards them. For a moment, Sky Sun's figure had become extremely mysterious in Wang Chong's heart. Long time no see. Looking at Xiaoyan, who was hiding behind the car and shivering, not knowing that the scarlet demon python had already left, Tianyang smiled. Hearing this, Xiaoyan was also surprised. Then she poked her head out and happened to meet Tianyang's eyes. Soon after, little Lian's pure face suddenly turned bright red. She hurriedly turned her head around, but she was shocked to find that the scarlet demon python that was about to kill her team had already left at some unknown time. "Where is the scarlet demon python?" Xiaoyan said blankly. Hearing this, Tianyang also smiled. Then he glanced at Wang Chong and said, "I don't know why it ran away. Maybe a powerful magical beast passed by." Tianyang naturally didn't want to say more about his own secret. After all, whether it was the 9 refined dragon body or the dragon pearl, they were all treasures that could cause cultivators of the clear chi stage, or even the transforming origin stage, to fight each other. If others found out about it, he would definitely not have peace before he grew up to become a real expert. Maybe his life that he had painstakingly saved would be lost because of this. You don't know. Hearing this, Wang Chong was surprised. Then he glanced at Tianyang's face. There was no trace of lying. He was also surprised and doubtful. Could it really be a coincidence? However, although he thought so, Wang Chong didn't show the slightest bit of surprise. Instead, he came in front of Xiaoyan. "Miss, do you know this person?" Yes." Suddenly asked by Wang Chong, Xiaoyan was also surprised. Then she nodded and said, the bright red color on her cheeks didn't recede in the slightest. "By the way, your herb-collecting team isn't large, and its overall strength isn't strong. The herbs you pick shouldn't attract that many magical beasts. Why did the scarlet demon python, which only exists in the depths of the fierce beast mountain range, appear in the periphery?" Tianyang rubbed his chin and said, "Even if the scarlet demon python was in its infancy, it wasn't weak among the second-level magical beasts. And this was the periphery of the periphery. They only needed to walk a few hundred meters to leave the fierce beast mountain range. Logically speaking, this was the human activity area. No matter how strong the magical beasts were, they wouldn't dare to act rashly here. It was just that there were fewer people now. However, the scarlet demon python shouldn't have taken such a huge risk to come here. We don't understand either." When he heard this, Wang Chong nodded his head rather gloomily. "This time, we have gathered the herbs at a fixed spot. We have already checked the herbs there, and it is impossible for them to grow herbs that can attract a rank 2 magical beast. However, this scarlet demon python is heading towards us." Wang Chong sighed and said, "Although no one in the herb-collecting team died in this battle, many people suffered irreparable injuries. Even if they survived, it was impossible for them to become practitioners in the future. At most, they could take a sum of gold coins from the Myriad Drug Pavilion and go back to do some small business or something. They had no chance to enter the fierce beast mountain range. Can I go in and have a look? I suspect that you may have taken something you shouldn't have." Tianyang walked around the car and suddenly said. Hearing this, Wang Chong was stunned and hesitated. Xiaoyan next to him nodded without hesitation and said, "Then let's have a look, big brother." "Miss this." Wang Chong was stunned and said awkwardly. Xiaoyan stared at Wang Chong and said, "Big brother can even deal with young Master Xiao." Uncle Xiao Tian praised him. "Such a person, what's wrong with having a look?" Xiao Tian, the owner of the Myriad Drug Pavilion, praised him for being able to deal with young Master Xiao. Hearing this, Wang Chong was shocked. Then he remembered that Tianyang was still calm when he saw the scarlet demon python, so he nodded and said, "Okay." After getting permission, Tianyang smiled and walked to the back of the herb-collecting cart. He did not touch the wounded lying in front, but directly opened the warehouse. In the warehouse, all kinds of herbs that had just been unearthed were sorted and placed together. Tianyang glanced at them and was a little disappointed. They were all low-level herbs, completely different from what he expected. Then Tianyang looked again and saw the same low-level herbs on the other side. Seeing this, Tianyang could not help but sigh. Herbs of that level were really not easy to find. Perhaps there was another reason why the Scarlet Demon Python came to attack the herb-gathering team. It was not as he had thought, that it was attracted by some kind of rare medicinal herb. "Excuse me, what are you looking for?" Xiaolian saw the change in Tianyang's face and asked. Hearing this, Tianyang casually said, "Although the Scarlet Demon Python's intelligence is not as good as humans, it still has basic spiritual intelligence. It won't attack a human team casually. But there must be a reason for this attack. It's very likely that it's because of the herbs. But I haven't found them before. Excuse me, what kind of herbs are you looking for?" Hearing Tianyang's introduction, Xiaolian was startled. Then, she remembered that she had found a strange herb near the herb-collecting spot and asked. Hearing this, Tianyang was startled. He did not know why Xiaolian asked this, but it was not a secret anyway. He said, "It's a kind of herb that is completely red and looks like a Ganoderma lucidum. It's very attractive to magical beasts." "Miss, isn't that?" Hearing Tianyang's description, Wang Chong was shocked. He turned his head and looked at Xiaolian in disbelief. On the other hand, Xiaolian was stunned for a moment. Then, she took out a medicinal herb from the bag at her waist and handed it to Tianyang. Is this it?" It was completely red and looked like a Ganoderma lucidum. Chapter 44. Blood Red Demon Ganoderma. Seeing this Ganoderma-like plant, Tianyang was stunned. Then, he was surprised to see the snake-shaped pattern on the blood-red demon python. The blood-red demon Ganoderma is a kind of medicinal herb. It grows after being bathed in the blood of magic beasts. Therefore, its color is like blood, crimson red. The pattern on the Ganoderma represents what kind of magic beast blood it has obtained. The pattern is similar to that of the blood-red demon python. That is to say, this blood-red demon Ganoderma was bathed in the blood of the blood-red demon python. Therefore, this blood-red demon Ganoderma, which is already very precious, is even more attractive to the blood-red demon python. Therefore, the blood-red demon python took the risk to attack your herb-gathering team. Why? Hearing that it was this ordinary-looking blood-red demon Ganoderma that almost killed their herb-gathering team, Wang Chong suddenly asked loudly, "It doesn't look like anything. It looks like..." Hearing this, Tianyang's mouth twitched. If it was possible to distinguish medicinal herbs by looking at it, then the number of alchemists would definitely increase. "I'm too lazy to explain the principle. You only need to know that if the blood-red demon python swallowed this blood-red demon Ganoderma, then it is very likely that its growth period would be greatly shortened. In other words, it would enter adulthood faster and greatly increase its chances of breaking through to the third stage, which is the transforming origin stage. Do you think the blood-red demon python wouldn't go crazy because of this?" Tianyang said. Hearing this, Wang Chong and Xiaolian's faces changed greatly. Then, they turned their heads to look at the place where the blood-red demon python disappeared. This blood-red demon Ganoderma had such a miraculous effect. No wonder the blood-red demon python attacked their herb-gathering team. Since it is so dangerous, this blood-red demon Ganoderma will be given a big brother. Xiaolian struggled for a moment before she made up her mind and handed the blood-red demon Ganoderma to Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang was stunned, and Wang Chong next to him suddenly became anxious. "Miss, you can't do this. This blood-red monster Ganoderma is so dangerous. If you give it to Tenshatsu, doesn't that mean that the blood-red boa's target will also be him?" Wang Chong said hurriedly. As for the value of the blood-red demon Ganoderma, he had no idea. Moreover, even if the blood-red demon Ganoderma was really precious and could be said to have saved their lives, Tianyang could completely accept it. However, he had also seen through Tianyang's strength. As an outer disciple of the Soaring Cloud sect, Tianyang's cultivation was at the peak of the 9th level of the body refinement realm, which was much stronger than him. However, he was definitely not a match for the scarlet demonic python from before. Wang Chong wouldn't be able to accept it if this youngster ended up like the rest of the herb-gathering team, just because of the blood-red witch Ganoderma. That was why he spoke up to dissuade Xiaolian. What? Xiaolian was stunned, and said with some dissatisfaction, "Big Brother saved our lives. Even if this blood-red demon Ganoderma is precious, so what? Can it be more important than the people in our team?" Previously, there was no one around, and it was even more impossible for demonic beasts to appear. Other than Big Brother, who else could save our lives? Xiao Yin said. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled bitterly. It turned out that the words he used to cover up for himself had not been heard at all. However, this was not a big deal. Tenshatsu may have saved us, but this blood-red demon Ganoderma will attract the scarlet demonic python, Wang Chong said hurriedly. Between his words, there was not the slightest bit of hypocrisy. Tianyang could also see that these words were actually said by Wang Chong from the bottom of his heart. Tenshatsu's strength is only a little higher than mine. If it attracts the scarlet demonic python, then won't we die without a doubt? We have a lot of people here. If it's really not possible, then we can invite Tenshatsu to temporarily join our herb gathering team. And then when we separate, we can give the blood-red demon Ganoderma to him. If I give it to him alone like this, my conscience will not be at ease, Wang Chong said. Hearing this, Xiaoyan was also stunned, and then nodded. Hearing this, Tianyang also smiled bitterly and said, "Sir, I appreciate your kindness, but it's just a scarlet demonic python. I still have the confidence to deal with it. Not to mention a young scarlet demonic python. Even if it was an adult scarlet demonic python, the moment it saw Tianyang, it would be completely suppressed by the dragon aura." In this way, what was Tianyang afraid of? I see. Wang Chong was stunned, and then his face suddenly changed. Then Tenshatsu, please accept this blood-red demon Ganoderma. Don't think about its value. You saved a whole car of people, so this is what you should do. After that, Wang Chong didn't care about the young miss anymore. He directly stuffed the blood-red Ganoderma into Tianyang's hands, then jumped to the front of the car and beckoned for Xiaoyan to get in. Hearing this, Tianyang was stunned, and so was Xiaoyan. Then, Tianyang's mouth twitched. This guy has a sense of justice, but he's also an honest person. Then, just as Captain Wang said, this blood-red demon Ganoderma is really insignificant compared to the lives of our entire team. So please accept it, Big Brother, Xiaoyan said. Hearing this, Tianyang's mouth twitched, and he also sighed and kept the blood-red demon Ganoderma. Originally, when he was in the depths of the fearsome Beast Mountain range, he found many medicinal herbs. Now, after obtaining this blood-red demon Ganoderma, he only needed a few more medicinal herbs to refine the vitality-dissolving pill, which could strengthen the liquefaction of his vital energy when he broke through from the clear chi stage to the essence transformation stage. In his previous life, when Tianyang broke through to the essence transformation stage, he took the vitality-dissolving pill. With his martial talent and the miraculous effect of the vitality-dissolving pill, it directly allowed his strength to surpass cultivators of the same level when he was at the first level of the essence transformation stage. However, it's not good to take your blood-red demon Ganoderma for free. How about this? I have a medicinal pill on hand. I'll give it to you. Tianyang pondered for a moment, then patted the space bag on his waist, and a chi recovery pill appeared in his hand. This is the medicinal herb that can be refined from the pill formula that I gave to your 10,000 Medicine Pavilion's Pavilion Master, Xiao Tian. Xiaoyan, take it to Xiao Tian. In terms of value, it's about the same as a single blood-red demon Ganoderma. Tianyang said. Hearing this, Xiaoyan's face instantly reddened, and she was about to open her mouth to refuse. Tianyang was too lazy to care about this. He directly stuffed the chi recovery pill into Xiaoyan's hand, then turned around and strode out. Not long after, he disappeared from everyone's sight. Xiaoyan watched Tianyang leave until Tianyang completely disappeared under the cover of the large trees. Seeing this, Wang Chong also sighed softly. His young master, Xiao, might not have a chance. I've stayed long enough in the fearsome Beast Mountain range. If I still don't return to the sect, I'm afraid I'll miss the inner sect disciple assessment. Walking on the road, Tianyang muttered. Then he came to an intersection, chose a direction, and quickened his pace. Chapter 45. What? Tianyang, that trash, came back alive from the fearsome Beast Mountain range? Are those guys all trash? An incomparably furious voice erupted from Bai Lu's courtyard. Upon hearing this, the labor disciple who had come to report began to tremble. He did not dare to utter a single word. In front of Bai Lu, who had advanced to the 8th level of the body refinement realm, his cultivation of the 2nd level of the body refinement realm was simply too weak. If Bai Lu was unhappy, even if he killed him, no one would say a word. Beside him, Bai Xiang, who had recovered with great difficulty, but his face was still pale. When he heard this, his face could not help but change drastically. One must know that he was present when Bai Lu ordered the Bai family members. The Bai family had also sent 2 disciples of the 8th level of the body refinement realm. They could definitely kill Tianyang, a weakling at the 6th level of the body refinement realm. Moreover, it was in a hidden and dangerous place like the fearsome Beast Mountain range. The prestige of the fearsome Beast Mountain range could be said to be like a sharp blade hanging over the heads of the outer disciples of the Lingyun sect. Only a few of the top 10 outer disciples with great skill and courage would dare to go to the fearsome Beast Mountain range to gain experience. Tianyang, who was only at the 6th level of the body refinement realm, dared to go to the fearsome Beast Mountain range. In the eyes of Bai Lu and Bai Xiang, even if the Bai family members did not make a move, Tianyang would undoubtedly die. Who would have thought that the 2 men from the Bai family who had been sent out were still missing, while Tianyang had returned to the sect in one piece? Moreover, according to this person's information, it seemed that Tianyang's strength had improved. In this case, did it not mean that all the plans that Bai Lu had made against Tianyang were all a joke? However, in a few days, it will be the day of the intersect assessment. So what if he is lucky enough to come back? The intersect assessment this time is much stricter than the previous ones. Even I do not have absolute confidence that I can enter the intersect. As for Tianyang, he will eat dust in the outer sect for the rest of his life. Bai Lu said coldly. Then, he waved his hand and dismissed the servant disciple. He stood up and returned to his room. Bai Xiang also didn't follow. However, just like Bai Lu, he had a terrifying thought that he didn't dare to say out loud. The reason why there was no news of the 2 Bai family members seemed to be different from what they thought. They were not fooling around outside and did not come back. Instead, they were killed by Tianyang. He's been out for half a month, and there's not even a single note. Tianyang's mouth twitched as he looked at the dusty door in front of him. The original Tianyang was really terrible with people. Logically speaking, anyone who had a good relationship with him would find it strange that he suddenly disappeared for more than 10 days. On the positive side, it was understandable that he was not popular. After all, Tianyang was only one of the 3 trash in the outer sect. It would be strange if he could make any friends. However, on the other hand, there were a lot of people that looked down on Tianyang because of his original talent. As for Bai Lu and Bai Xiang, they had even mobilized the power of their clans to kill him. However, it doesn't matter if there's no note. Anyway, the less popular this body is, the better it is for me. Although this Emperor's soul power is impressive, it's still quite difficult to pretend to be a person. Tianyang rubbed his chin and laughed. He pushed the door open and walked in. Unlike the dusty door, there was not much dust in the house. After all, this was where Tianyang lived. Although Tianyang did not have the ability to set up a formation, he could still use a few tricks to block the dust. The intersect disciple assessment will be in about a week's time. My current cultivation has reached the peak of the body refinement realm. My chi and blood are full, but my physical strength can still be tempered. Tianyang muttered to himself. Then he took out the straw figurine that he used to practice his fist and placed it in the small space in the backyard. Then he circulated the inner yuan in his body. In the next moment, he attacked the straw figurine. Bang, bang, bang. A total of 25 echoes. Tianyang's punch was infused with 25 echoes. According to the principle of the Tong Ming fist, Tianyang had infused 25 hidden forces in this short punch. A single strand of hidden force was sufficient to cause an ordinary body refinement realm cultivator to be flustered, and 25 strands what sort of level would its lethality reach? If anyone from 10,000 years ago had seen this scene, they would have been shocked. 10,000 years ago, Tongming Fist was a common technique. Even after Tianyong had obtained it, he had modified it out of special feeling. However, the result was still the same. Tianyong's modification only made its body refinement effect and power much stronger. However, it had no effect on the nature of the Tongming Fist itself. The limit of the Tongming Fist was 24 echoes, which was 24 hidden forces. In his previous life, no one had been able to break this limit. Even Tianyong could not do it. Even the other Heavenly Ascension Realm cultivators, who specialized in fist techniques, could not do it. However, after his rebirth, Tianyong had only practiced for a short while. He did not focus on practicing and had easily reached the limit. Furthermore, he had broken through it. Reaching the limit was easy. In his previous life, Tianyong had already practiced the Tongming Fist to the point of perfection. As long as he had enough true yuan and physical strength, reaching the limit was not difficult. However, breaking the limit was extremely terrifying. Only Tianyong knew that in theory, it was impossible to achieve 25 hidden forces. It was not something that he had practiced himself. After all, fist techniques were like this. Unless you made a huge modification, it was impossible to make him gain an additional force. However, Tianyong's chi and blood was not at the pseudo-perfection of 790 feet like in his previous life. Instead, it was at the level of perfection. In other words, it was the supreme realm of the body refinement realm. Therefore, he was able to use the Tongming Fist to this extent. Chi and blood are equivalent to the foundation of one's strength. With my current spiritual strength, I can control it to the most perfect level. In a short period of time, I can explode with absolute power. However, the explosiveness is only temporary. Only by turning this explosiveness into true strength can I truly reach the level of perfection of the supreme realm of the body refinement realm. Tianyong stood where he was, looking at the grass that filled the sky in front of him as he spoke. With his strength as a martial emperor, although he had never come into contact with this level, the cultivation experience of the peak of the Heavenly Ascension realm had given him incomparably keen insight. As for the relationship between chi and the physical body, it was easy to understand. In my previous life, I was ignorant and did not use 790 feet of chi and blood to the extreme. Now, not only do I understand, but I also have the perfect level of the Great Path. Chapter 46. Unknowingly, 7 days had passed in the blink of an eye. In these 7 days, other than eating and drinking, Tianyong devoted all of his time to cultivation. Originally, his blood could only be used as a temporary source of explosive power. However, under the circumstances where there was explosive power, most of it became Tianyong's own strength. To be precise, when the blood was released and exploded with tyrannical power, it could also be absorbed into the body and become a permanent part of the body's physical strength. It was unknown if anyone had taken this path before. However, Tianyong had never taken this path before. However, this path was indeed correct. At this moment, Tianyong's physical strength had reached a level that ordinary refinement realm cultivators could only look up to. It was not an exaggeration to say that Tianyong only needed one punch. He did not even need to use the 25 echoes of the Tongming Fist to the extreme to be able to instantly kill Bai Xiong. If he had used the 25 echoes, then Bai Lu could have been seriously injured by Tianyong's punch. This was the power of the perfect refinement realm. The current Tianyong had not yet reached the perfect refinement realm. There was still quite a distance from the true extreme. However, this was enough to kill an ordinary refinement realm level 8 with one punch. With this kind of strength, if I want to pass the intersect assessment, it will be incomparably easy. Tianyong laughed lightly. After that, his figure flashed, and he arrived outside his residence, heading towards the place where the intersect assessment was held. The intersect assessment did not have any restrictions. As long as one was an outer sect disciple and had the confidence, they could participate. However, The inner sect assessment strictness was known far and wide. Therefore, most of the outer sect disciples would not choose to participate even if the inner sect assessment was approaching. At most, they would just go and watch during the assessment. Although the Lingyun sect could not be considered as a powerful sect, they still had something like a sect assessment field. Soon, Tianyang arrived at the entrance of the sect assessment field by himself. The person in charge of guarding the entrance opened his eyes and looked at Tianyang expressionlessly. Those who enter must present their soaring cloud, sect, disciple identification. Only after their identity is verified can they enter and participate in the assessment. Hearing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. The Soaring Cloud sect had actually sent a level 1 Radiant Chi Realm cultivator to guard the gate. One had to know that according to the information that he had gathered in the past assessments, the gatekeepers were only ordinary disciples to make up the numbers. It seems that what they said was true. This time, the Lingyun sect has really raised the requirements for inner disciples. Tianyang whispered in his heart. Then he walked out and took out his proof of identity from his space bag. He handed it over to the middle-aged man who was at the first level of the Bright Chi realm. As for that person, he took the document and checked it with the information in his hand. Then, he opened the door and let him in. As soon as they stepped into the testing grounds, many people began to laugh coldly. Tianyang, this trash is so impressive. He actually made so many of us wait for him. Isn't that right? He thought that he had some kind of fortuitous encounter that allowed him to get rid of his reputation as trash. He thought that he could rise up like the trash in the legends. What he doesn't know is that in front of a true genius, he is only an ant. I guess he's just here to try his luck. A piece of trash, that's all he has. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression did not change at all. He calmly glanced over. The people who spoke were standing beside Bai Lu. One of them was Bai Xiang, and the other was unknown. However, since they were standing beside Bai Lu, they must be one of Bai Lu's lackeys. If that was the case, it was normal for them to look down on him, even though they had never met before. He did not get angry. If the dignified Tianji Sword Emperor got angry because of the words of two ordinary people, how could he be called an emperor? The top 10 outer disciples are all here. Not one is missing. Sweeping his gaze over everyone, Tianyang whispered in his heart. In his senses, he could clearly see the cultivation level of everyone in the testing grounds. There were a total of 32 people. The strongest one was only at the peak of the 9th level of the body refinement realm. Although they had reached this level, they were not close to the vital energy realm. However, the number 1 outer disciple was actually a female. This made Tianyang a little surprised. As for the rest, he did not pay much attention to it. After all, one's learning level was enough to sweep the entire year and even the entire school. Would one still care about the 3rd or 4th place in the school? Moreover, the gap between them and Tianyang was even greater than this example. The weakest one was only at the 7th level of the body refinement realm. Without a doubt, they were here to make up the numbers or to try their luck. The top 10 disciples of the outer court had all reached the 8th level of the body refinement stage, and 4 of the top 5 had stepped into the 9th level of the body refinement stage. The value of the inner court exam this time wasn't low. Since everyone is here, I will briefly explain the rules of the inner disciple assessment. At this moment, just as Tianyang entered the testing grounds, an old voice came from midair. Following that, a figure suddenly appeared in midair and landed on the ground. Many people's faces changed when they heard the old voice. At this moment, as the old man landed on the ground, a powerful aura was emitted. This person was actually at the 5th level of the vital energy realm. Seeing this, many people's pupils shrank. It's Elder Lin from the outer sect. An expert at the 5th level of the vital energy realm was actually sent to be the host of the inner sect assessment this time. It seems like the sect is treating this inner disciple trial with great importance. Some people exclaimed. Hearing this, many people nodded slightly. Following that, Elder Lin coughed twice and said, "The rules of this inner sect assessment are different from the previous ones. Therefore, what I'm going to say next is the main point. You all must listen carefully. Otherwise, if you make any mistakes in the rules, there will be no turning back. If you want to become an inner sect disciple, you will have to wait until the next inner sect assessment a year later. I believe that you all do not wish for this to happen. Elder Lin said solemnly. Many people's faces turned solemn upon hearing this. The initially noisy assessment ground quietened down as all the participating disciples focused their attention on Elder Lin. In the previous intersect assessment, there were only 2 tests. One was the foundation test, and the other was the arena battle. Only the top 5 in the arena battle could enter the intersect and become an intersect disciple. Elder Lin said. Hearing this, some people nodded their heads. They had participated in the previous intersect assessment and were eliminated. They knew the rules like the back of their hands. But now it has changed, Elder Lin said loudly. The vital energy of the 5th level of the vital energy realm seemed to have been infused into the sound waves. His voice rumbled like thunder, spreading throughout the entire area. Everyone became more alert after hearing this loud shout. This time, the foundation test and arena battle will not change. However, at the end, there will be an additional magical beast hunt. The magical beast hunt is to enter a specific location in the sect and kill specific magical beasts. Finally, the magical beasts will be converted into points and ranked in the top 5. In order to become an inner sect disciple, not only must you perform well in the normal battles, you must not be weak in the life and death battles. Otherwise, when you leave the sect in the future and encounter a life and death battle, you will be defeated immediately. Elder Lin shouted. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded his head. Indeed, in his previous life, he had experienced countless life and death battles to achieve what he had in the future. A flower cultivated in a greenhouse may look beautiful on the surface, but after a storm, all of it would be destroyed into ashes and dust. Chapter 47. Foundation Assessment begin. Elder Lin's deep voice resounded throughout the entire field. Then, Elder Lin suddenly patted the palm-sized space bag hanging from his waist. It's actually a space bag. It said that this kind of space treasure is extremely precious. I didn't expect Elder Lin to have one. Ordinary cultivators in the refinement realm, like us, can't even touch the edge of a space bag. Elder Lin, on the other hand, is indeed worthy of his position as an elder. He's at the Bright Chi realm level 5, and even has such a precious treasure like a space bag. When they saw the glowing space bag, quite a number of people cried out in surprise. Even the top 10 outer disciples' expressions changed. After all, an item like the space bag was extremely precious to them. However, after hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly as he looked at his waist. Based on the aura he had sensed earlier, this space bag seemed to be similar to the space bag that the Tian family had given to Tianyang. However, the Tian family had only given him this space bag. It was said that it was given to him by the long-lost father of this body. The other cultivation resources were completely cut off after the previous Tianyang failed to break through to the refinement realm and was discovered to have a naturally useless spiral meridian. This ruthlessness was a huge blow to the previous Tianyang. However, he had suffered enough at that time. Therefore, Tianyang only remembered this point now. However, this discussion about the space bag was only brought up for a short while. Following that, everyone's attention was attracted by the huge object that appeared in the field. Hiss! After seeing this, countless senior disciples took a deep breath. They're using this in the foundational examination. My luck this time is so bad that it's unparalleled. At this moment, the huge object that Elder Lin had brought out and placed in the center of the field was completely exposed to everyone's eyes. It was about 20 feet tall and 30 feet wide. Its entire body was made of bronze, and it looked like an incomparably heavy bell. Seeing this huge bell, many people revealed a trace of despair. Looks like this time around, the sect was really going all out. Seeing this large bell, I'm sure many of the senior disciples can tell what the foundation assessment is about. However, among these 36 people, there are many who are here for the first time. Then, let me explain it to you. Elder Lin smiled and slammed his palm on the large bell beside him. Suddenly, a deep sound was heard. Bang! Just like what I did just now, your foundational exam this time is to sound this large bell. Hearing this, many people were stunned. Then, a trace of surprise appeared on their faces. Just to ring the large bell? To them, this seemed like a piece of cake. Even though this large bronze bell was indeed incomparably heavy and they might not be able to lift it even if they used all their strength, but if they were to ring it, even someone at the 5th level of the body refinement stage would be able to do it. However, what you have to do is not simply to ring the bell. Seeing the change in the crowd's expression, Elder Lin smiled. What you have to do is to ring this large bell from a distance of 10 feet away, using your own true yuan. Of course, the top 10 outer disciples are exempted from this foundation assessment. As if a bomb had been thrown into deep water, most of the people's faces revealed a look of disbelief. They even forgot about the privilege of being exempted from the top 10 outer disciples. Ringing the large bell from a distance was not a problem. However, this large bell was so heavy and they had to ring it from a distance of 10 feet. The difficulty instantly increased by several times. Looks like you all understand. Smiling as he saw the sudden change in the crowd's expression, Elder Lin stroked his beard and said, "First, Jiangfeng." Hearing this, a refinement stage level 7 martial artist who was waiting by the side was stunned. Then, he walked forward and stood at the edge of the boundary that Elder Lin had drawn as he nervously looked at the large bell. The foundation assessment that he thought was extremely easy previously seemed to have become extremely difficult now. "Elder Lin, can I use martial techniques?" Turning his head, Jiang Feng asked Elder Lin, who was watching from the side. Elder Lin slightly nodded his head. Yes. After receiving an affirmative answer, Jiang Feng heaved a sigh of relief. Then, the true yuan in his body circulated and he punched out, as if it had condensed into a large tiger. The true yuan tiger roared towards the sky. Then, it ferociously charged towards the large bronze bell. Wild Tiger Fist. Jiang Feng roared loudly. The true yuan in his body was pushed to the limit and the wild tiger also became extremely powerful. Seeing this, many people's hearts were filled with hope. With this kind of power, you should be able to ring the large bell. One must know that although Jiang Feng's strength was not considered to be the best amongst this group of disciples, he could be considered to be above average. If even he could not pass, then it would be very difficult for the others. Seeing this, Tianyang shook his head. This large bronze bell was not just a bell. For the sake of the assessment, some actions were also made. Although Jiang Feng's Wild Tiger Fist was not weak, it was still extremely difficult to ring the bell. Then, the wild tiger also ferociously pounced on the large bronze bell. However, there was not the slightest sound, and the wild tiger automatically dissipated. Seeing this, Jiang Feng and those who were of similar cultivation level to him, or those who were slightly weaker, revealed a trace of despair on their faces. If even Jiang Feng could not pass, then what was there left for them to play? Hurry up and go home to wash up and sleep. If they could not even pass the first stage of the foundation assessment, then there was no need to talk about the subsequent arena matches and the life and death battles with the magical beasts. There was no sound you did not pass. Elder Lin glanced at the large bronze bell and sighed. Then he said, these gentle words were like a bolt from the blue in Jiang Feng's ears, directly bombarding the top of his head. Then, Jiang Feng could only leave in a daze. If he couldn't even pass the first round, then there was no way he could pass the second round. Second, Lu Fei, very quickly, one by one, most of the people went up to give a try. However, those who succeeded were few and far between. The most outstanding person, Lu Fei, had only used all his strength to strike the bell so hard that it could not even be considered a sound. Very quickly, except for Tianyang, everyone had completed the assessment. Last one, Tianyang, Elder Lin said loudly. Then, Tianyang slowly stood up and walked up. Haha, Tianyang has gone up. This trash came to fish in troubled waters and thought that he could enter the intersect. In the end, isn't he still going to be eliminated in the foundation assessment? He thought that he was amazing just because he had a fortuitous encounter. However, under this kind of real gold and silver assessment, all of Tianyang's little tricks are useless. Bai Xiang and another disciple began to laugh maniacally. They looked at Tianyang mockingly, and a portion of the surrounding people saw this and also revealed a contemptuous smile. So what if he really had a cultivation base? Even they cannot do it. How could this trash do it? Waves of mockery rang in his ears, but Tianyang's expression did not change at all. Looking at the large bronze bell 10 feet away, he raised his right hand and pointed a finger. A ray of light shot out from Tianyang's index finger and hit the wall of the large bell. Bang! Chapter 48. Pung! The clear and resonant sound of the bell slowly spread out under the vibration of the bronze bell, spreading throughout the entire arena. The jeers stopped abruptly. No one dared to believe their own ears and eyes. One had to know that the strongest person before, Lu Fei, had a cultivation of the 8th level of the body refinement realm, but he was only able to make the bronze bell emit a muffled sound that couldn't even be considered a bell chime. And now, Tianyang, the trash that they despised, actually made a result that no one had ever achieved before. In an instant, the arena, which was filled with jeers and jeers, was completely silent. Even Elder Lin could not believe the situation in front of him. Tianyang, who had been unable to enter the martial way for a long time and had only recently entered the martial way for some unknown reason, was actually able to do this? At this moment, Elder Lin was just about to sense Tianyang's strength, but he was shocked to find that he could not even sense the aura, which was the easiest thing to observe. In other words, as a cultivator at the 5th level of the Clear Chi realm, he could not see Tianyang's current level of cultivation. This Tianyang's secrets are not small. After sighing, Elder Lin laughed heartily and said, "Great. Good. Tianyang, pass." Hearing Elder Lin's carefree laughter, the faces of Bai Lu, Bai Xiang, and the others turned so ugly that it was as if they had eaten feces. Previously, Bai Xiang had also gone up to give it a try, and he was barely able to make a sound that was slightly louder than a mosquito. The pupils of the top 5 geniuses shrank slightly. Their eyes widened as they looked at the calm face of Tianyang with great astonishment. And now, Tianyang actually made the bell make a crisp sound that no one had ever been able to do. Moreover, what Tianyang did was completely different from the others. The others, even Lu Fei, had to use all of their strength to pass, and he was the same. But Tianyang only used one finger. There was no amplification from any martial technique, only an ordinary true origin finger. With a single finger, he had instantly destroyed all of their strength. They had been completely destroyed. Oh my God! Some people widened their eyes and cried out in disbelief as they looked at the unceasingly vibrating large bronze bell. Previously, countless disciples had used all their strength, but had not been able to cause even the slightest ripple from the bronze bell. But now, Tianyang, this trash who had once been unable to step onto the martial path, had actually managed to ring it with a single finger. Looking at the situation, it seemed that he didn't even use any martial skills. In other words, Tianyang could completely beat them up and kill them with just his own strength. Some of the people who were just following the trend also dispelled the idea of going against Tianyang. What a joke. Since Tianyang was already so powerful, if they went against him, wouldn't that be courting death? They might only know how to follow the trend, but that didn't mean they were stupid. The rise of the Tianyang was a foregone conclusion. Now, except for a few diehards, or people like Bai Lu who had conflicts with the Tianyang, almost everyone's contempt for the Tianyang had disappeared. Fortunately, I didn't let you down. Tianyang smiled lightly, then turned around and walked back to where he was originally standing. At this time, Elder Lin looked at Tianyang's back with satisfaction and waved his hand. The space bag on his waist opened automatically. Then, the large bronze bell turned into a ray of light and entered the space bag. At this moment, the people who were unable to ring the bell also realized that this was no longer their stage. After that, those people let out a long sigh and walked out on their own accord. None of them tried to stay. After all, 32 people and 64 eyes were watching. In the first round, there were many outer sect disciples who were eliminated. Out of the 36 outer sect disciples who participated in the inner sect disciple assessment, 16 had left, half of them. This didn't include the top 10 outer sect disciples who might not be as strong as Lu Fei. If the top 10 outer sect disciples weren't very strong, they might be eliminated in the first round of the foundation assessment. In other words, if the top 10 outer sect disciples also participated in the assessment, the elimination rate would be even more terrifying. Elimination rate, 50%. Compared to the previous inner sect disciple assessment, it's much worse. However, this is also due to the increased difficulty this time. Elder Lin said as he scanned the crowd. Then he patted his space bag, and a huge lottery box appeared in his hand. Elder Lin smiled and said, "Let's start from the beginning." However, no matter what, in the end, only 5 disciples will be able to become inner court disciples. Thus, the elimination rate does not matter. Elder Lin said. Hearing this, the remaining 16 people also nodded their heads. Then, they looked at each other with burning fighting spirit. Generally speaking, the arena battle was the last round. However, this time, there was an additional demonic beast hunting. However, this didn't mean that the arena battle was less important. To these outer sect disciples, the arena battle wasn't only a necessary path to become an inner sect disciple. It was also the best place to spar with other disciples or settle grudges. Thus, everyone began to make preparations. The rules of the arena battle are the same as before. There are a total of 5 rounds for battles and 10 points for each battle. The top 3 people will get 3, 2, and 1 point as a reward. By the way, the final demonic beast hunt will give you 1 point for each demonic beast you kill. In the end, according to the total number of demonic beasts hunted and the results of the arena battle, the 5 people who will enter the inner sect this time will be decided. Elder Lin said. Hearing that, Tianyang and the other disciple who didn't know the rules memorized it. As for Tianyang, after hearing Elder Lin's words, he raised his eyebrows and sensed the venomous gaze from Bai Lu behind him. At this moment, Bai Lu had been standing in the corner of the assessment field and didn't show his arm. His left hand, which was crippled by Tianyang, was also not exposed. However, this couldn't offset the resentment in Bai Lu's heart. When he found out that the people he sent out were completely useless, Bai Lu had an incomparably heavy killing intent towards Tianyang. This kid couldn't be left alive. There were countless examples of former trash who suddenly rose up in the mainland, and Tianyang was already showing signs of this. He was already so powerful now. If he grew up in the future, wouldn't he be able to kill Bai Lu in an instant? To the arrogant Bai Lu, this was absolutely unacceptable. Chapter 49. Gusts of autumn wind blew past, blowing up a few fallen leaves. In the arena, the stalemate in the battle seemed to be about to be broken. In the next moment, Lu Fei suddenly attacked. A ray of light exploded from Lu Fei's hand, and the 10th place outer sect disciple's face instantly changed. Looking at the bright halo in front of him, he hurriedly channeled the true Yuan in his body and retreated. However, Lu Fei was already prepared and roared. Wind wave fist. As if there were waves of wind roaring, the ray of light was immediately dyed with a layer of clear blue. Then it bombarded the 10th place outer sect disciple's body, and a strong impact heavily hit that person's arm. Bang! A mouthful of blood was spat out from the 10th place outer sect disciple's mouth. Then, just as he was about to use his martial skill to counterattack, Lu Fei's other fist had already arrived. I admit defeat. Seeing this, the 10th place outer sect disciple understood immediately. He immediately shouted and channeled his true Yuan to retreat frantically. At this moment, Lu Fei also let out a sigh of relief. Although he had improved recently in his cultivation, he was originally only the 11th place outer sect disciple. If he wanted to defeat the 10th place outer sect disciple, he would need to put in a lot of effort. Then, Elder Lin opened his mouth to announce the results, and the 2 people left the arena. Then, Elder Lin took out 2 pieces of paper from the lottery box in his hand and laughed softly. First round, second round, Ling Yuhan, Bai Xiang. Soaring Cloud Sect outer sect disciple. First disciple, Ling Yuhan. looking at the young girl who arrived in the arena in a flash, her waist-length blue hair fluttering in the wind. She wore the perfect size of the Lingyun's sex outer court robe, which perfectly accentuated the curves of her body. This sentence flashed in the hearts of most people. Ling Yuhan was not an old disciple who had participated in the last intercourt disciple assessment. On the contrary, she had only joined the Soaring Cloud sect for 7 months, yet she had already turned the tables and become the #1 disciple of the outer court. In addition to her beautiful appearance, she was also regarded as a goddess by countless people. As for the previous Tianyang, who had wasted many years in the Soaring Cloud sect due to his body's constitution, he had become the laughingstock of the entire sect and was often compared to Ling Yuhan, the peak of the 9th level of the body refinement realm. From the looks of it, he is about the same age as this body. His talent is not weak. Blinking his eyes, Tianyang looked at the valiant young girl standing on the stage. He evaluated her in his heart and shifted his gaze to Bai Xiang's face. At this moment, Bai Xiang's face was alternating between green and white. When his name was called, his face had already become incomparably pale. Ling Yuhan was at least at the 9th level of the body refinement stage. As for him, he was only at the 7th level of the body refinement stage, and this was only because the Bai clan had poured in all their resources. When Tianyang went to the ferocious beast mountain range to practice the first refining of the 9-tempered dragon body, the earth dragon body, the Bai family also knew about the Soaring Cloud sect's interdisciple assessment. Therefore, they spent a lot of effort and resources on Bai Lu and Bai Xiang. In addition, Bai Xiang had already broken through to the 5th level of the body refinement stage. With such a huge amount of resources, it was not surprising that he had broken through to the 7th level of the body refinement stage. However, because Bai Lu's left hand was completely crippled, even if he used those resources to practice, it would not have much of an effect. Therefore, he also gave a part of his own resources to Bai Xiang. However, even if the current Bai Xiang had already reached the 7th level of the body refinement stage, facing the #1 outer disciple who was at the 9th level of the body refinement stage, it was impossible for him to win. You make the first move. Looking indifferently at Bai Xiang, Ling Yuhan's eyes did not waver at all. In fact, there was even a trace of disgust. She had also heard of Bai Xiang's deeds. Therefore, she would not give him the slightest bit of respect. Hearing this, Bai Xiang's face turned even uglier. Against a young girl, he was actually allowed to make the first move? However, when he thought of the strength of the person in front of him, Bai Xiang nodded his head. Then the inner yuan in his body began to circulate. Then he condensed it on his fist. His right foot suddenly stomped on the ground, and he shot out like an arrow. "Miss Ling, please excuse me," Bai Xiang shouted loudly. In the next moment, the fist that had condensed the inner yuan of the 7th level of the body refinement stage suddenly attacked. Wave-breaking fist. The inner yuan revolved and condensed. A ray of greenish-blue light condensed on Bai Xiang's fist. In the next moment, the sandbag-sized fist arrived in front of Ling Yuhan. The wave-breaking fist momentum is enough, but the essence of it is still far from being understood. Tianyang shook his head. This Bai Xiang, after so long, had not made any progress. At this moment, Ling Yuhan finally moved. Like a bolt of lightning flashing through space, a ray of light directly pierced through the condensed vital energy of the wave-breaking fist. The right hand, which looked like it could be broken with a pinch, pointed at Bai Xiang's fist. "Defeat!" Ling Yuhan shouted. In the next moment, Bai Xiang's wave-breaking fist was directly crushed by a tyrannical wave of inner yuan. After that, Ling Yuhan took a step forward, and the sharp wind from his fingers abruptly changed, transforming into a strong fist. A punch punched out. Bang! A mouthful of blood spurted out from Bai Xiang's mouth. Just as he was about to do something, he was completely defeated by the next punch. His body flew out like a cannonball and landed heavily on the ground. If not for Elder Lin's timely intervention, the 3 consecutive attacks of a finger, a punch, and another punch would have been enough to cripple Bai Xiang. So strong. Seeing this scene, Quite a number of people were incomparably shocked as they looked at the slim and graceful Ling Yuhan, who appeared to be harmless to humans and animals. No one had expected that this young lady, who was as quiet as a virgin, would actually be so swift and fierce once she moved. She acted decisively and without hesitation. In just 3 moves, she defeated Bai Xiang. She was fully deserving of the first place in the outer sect. With regard to this point, the second-ranked outer court disciple could only sigh. Although he also had the strength of body refinement stage level 9, he had yet to reach the peak. Looking at the current situation, the chances of him reclaiming the number 1 position were slim. The second round, Ling Yuhan wins, Elder Lin announced in a loud voice. Everyone nodded in succession as they secretly pondered in their hearts. If Ling Yuhan had not held back, it was likely that a single move would have been enough to defeat Bai Xiang. Then, after Bai Xiang was pulled away for treatment and Ling Yuhan left the arena, Elder Lin took out 2 pieces of paper from the lottery box at the side. With just one glance, he was slightly stunned. Then, his lips curled into a smile, and he opened his mouth. Round 1, third round, Tianyang Bai Lu. Hearing these 2 names, everyone's expression was as stunned as Elder Lin previously. Then, they cast their gazes on Tianyang, who had just defeated everyone and rang the bell. A piece of trash who only managed to ring the bell by luck. Against someone like Bai Lu, who is ranked 8th in the outer sect, there's only death awaiting him. An outer sect disciple looked at Tianyang's calm face and sneered in his heart. He did not say anything else. At this moment, Tianyang and Bai Lu stood up at the same time and looked at each other. The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled into a smile. Chapter 50. Tianyang, you humiliated me last time. Now I, Bai Lu, will make you pay back 100-fold. I will use your blood to wash away the humiliation I suffered in the past. Bai Lu said coldly as he stared at the indifferent Tianyang in front of him. He didn't notice that his voice was trembling a little. Some of the ordinary disciples didn't notice the change in Bai Lu's tone. However, it seemed as though Bai Lu and Tianyang had a grudge against each other. Some of the people who were familiar with Bai Lu changed their expressions when they heard this. It seemed as though Bai Lu and Tianyang didn't just have a grudge against each other. Bai Lu, who was ranked 8th in the outer sect, seemed to be the one who was at a disadvantage. Based on Bai Lu's tone, it was clear that he had suffered a great loss. In fact, it might even be a great loss. When they thought of how the insufferably arrogant Bai Lu had recently become reclusive, and how the incomparably savage Bai Xiang had also become much more restrained, a frightening thought involuntarily rose in their hearts. Could it be that Bai Lu and Bai Xiang's strange behavior was caused by Tianyang, one of the 3 great trash in the outer sect? When they thought of this, they shook their heads vigorously. How was that possible? Even if Tianyang had obtained some kind of treasure, it was impossible for him to defeat Bai Lu in the short span of 1 or 2 months. Perhaps Bai Lu and Bai Xiang had really turned over a new leaf. Then, prepare to die. Mad Tiger Fist. Bai Lu roared as he stomped his feet on the ground. His figure suddenly shot forward. At this moment, a voice that sounded like a mad tiger's roar rang out from Bai Lu's body again. This punch again? Yes, it seems like he has grasped the essence of it, but it's still not enough. Tianyang's expression didn't change in the face of Bai Lu's sudden attack. He chuckled lightly and didn't even use the steel sword on his back. Without any fancy moves, he threw a punch forward. Crazy. Wild Tiger Fist. That was not a low-grade martial skill. Even if Tianyang's cultivation is about the same as Bai Lu's, it's impossible for him to block it without using a martial technique. Tianyang has really become arrogant after getting rid of the title of trash. When they saw this, some of the people who had originally looked down on Tianyang couldn't help but sneer inwardly. In the next moment, the simple punch collided with Bai Lu's mad tiger fist. Boom! 2 powerful Zhen essences burst out. The 2 of them also revolved the Zhen essences in their bodies. Streams of Zhen essences poured into their fists and blasted out an even more powerful attack. However, at this moment, some people realized that something was wrong. On the other hand, Bai Lu's expression was normal. He clenched his teeth and exerted all his strength. Streams of blood chi burst out from the surroundings. It was obvious that he was using all his strength. Even his true yuan had started to dissipate due to him overdoing it. On the other hand, not only did Tianyang not use his full strength, but his expression also seemed very relaxed. He didn't even release his true origin chi. Although they couldn't tell how the true origin chi was channeled, it was obvious from Tianyang's expression that he didn't use any strength. Tianyang didn't even use a martial technique against Bai Lu, the 8th ranked outer court genius. He didn't even use his full strength? Bastard! If others could see it, Bai Lu naturally could as well. He roared angrily. In the next moment, his body flashed, and he appeared behind Tianyang. Since you're so eager to die, don't blame me. Tiger's Roar. The upgraded version of the Mad Tiger Fist, a martial technique that was close to the half-mystic class, exploded from Bai Lu's hands. Seeing this, many people closed their eyes. It was obvious that even if Tianyang's performance was amazing, there was only one outcome when faced with the 8th-ranked outer court disciple who was enraged. As expected, he used a trick in the foundation assessment. Once he encounters a real battle, he immediately reveals his true form. Mocking laughter filled the air. When Tianyang heard this, he smiled lightly and couldn't be bothered with it. Whether it was in his previous life or in this life, he had heard such words many times. His feet moved lightly, and his true origin chi circulated. Tianyang's body suddenly became illusory. Seeing this, the tiger's roar, which had locked onto Tianyang, suddenly lost its target. In the next moment, Tianyang's body suddenly disappeared, and the fierce wind from the fist appeared behind him. This was the movement technique that Tianyang had been practicing this week. Due to his cultivation, he couldn't practice a powerful movement technique. However, this movement technique, called the Dragon Subduing Step, was at the mid-grade of the Earth class. In addition, this was the movement technique that Tianyang thought was most compatible with the 9-temper dragon body that he was practicing. Movement technique? As this thought flashed through his mind, Bai Lu's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly activated the white fox movement technique that he had learned from the Bai family and hurriedly dodged the punch. Tianyang's expression didn't change, even though his punch had missed. After all, he was just casually attacking. He would wait until his opponent thought that he was in peak condition before he destroyed his body in confidence. Wouldn't this be more satisfying than simply defeating him? Wild Tiger Fist, Tiger's Roar, Mountain Forest, Wave-Breaking Fist. After roaring 3 times, Bai Lu's feet stomped heavily on the ground. In the next moment, a fist filled with explosive power fiercely attacked Tianyang. However, under Tianyang's erratic movement technique, no matter what kind of fist technique it was, it landed on empty air. It didn't even graze the side of Tianyang's clothes. Tianyang, if you're a man, fight me fair and square. All you know how to do is dodge. Are you a coward? Bai Lu roared angrily. When Tianyang heard that, he stopped in his tracks and looked at Bai Lu with interest. Bai Lu's face was flushed red from being tormented by his movement technique. His true origin was rapidly depleting. Do you know that if we were fighting to the death, you would have died a few thousand times in the time it took you to shout that sentence? Tianyang chuckled. When Bai Lu heard that, he was enraged again. However, a hint of joy flashed across his face. Tianyang had finally stopped. In that case, he would be able to use his strongest trump card. Since that's the case, I won't be killed by you. Tianyang die. Bai Lu roared as the white fox movement technique burst forth. Then, all the true yuan in his body was channeled into his fist. A layer of flames started to burn on his fist. Raging Flame Fist. The flames burned. Bai Lu's expression became incomparably ferocious. In the next instant, the burning fist arrived in front of Tianyang. Fair and square? Fine, I'll satisfy you. Faced with the incoming Raging Flame Fist, Tianyang's expression did not change. He chuckled, and for the first time, his true origin began to circulate on its own. In the next instant, Tianyang softly spat out a few words. Chime Fist. Bang, 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 bang. Like a series of explosions, hidden forces erupted. Together with Tianyang's terrifying physical strength, they extinguished the flames. Then, the 6 hidden forces erupted from within Bai Lu's body. Bai Lu spat out mouthfuls of blood. In the next instant, when the last hidden force erupted, Bai Lu spat out his last mouthful of black blood and fell unconscious. The group of outer court disciples, who had thought that an intense battle was about to break out, gaped at the scene. Chapter 51. Instant Kill. Just when everyone thought that a huge battle was about to break out, Tianyang's punch had completely shattered their worldview. The rise of Tianyang as a trash. They had always treated this as a joke. However, Bai Lu was now lying on the ground, spitting out blood like a dead dog. It was a ruthless slap to their faces. Then, Tianyang chuckled and turned to look at Elder Lin. Elder Lin, you should be able to announce the result now, right? Elder Lin, who had also fallen into a state of extreme shock, seemed to have woken up from a dream. The third round of the first round, Tianyang wins. His voice was not loud, but it spread throughout the entire arena. Hearing this, the faces of those who had mocked and ridiculed Tianyang turned extremely ugly, as if they had eaten **T. The sneers in their hearts had turned into equal shock at this moment. Tianyang, one of the 3 great trash of the outer sect, and the weakest of the 3, had actually gone from a trash who couldn't even step into the martial way to a level where he could instantly kill Bai Lu with just a few punches and kicks in a short span of 1 or 2 months. Looking back at the process of the battle, everyone was shocked to discover that from the beginning to the final instant kill, the sword on Tianyang's back did not move at all. He did not release any of his blood chi either. He did not even use his full strength. In Tianyang's eyes, Bai Lu's crazy and furious attacks seemed to be as funny as a clown's. Then, next, the 4th round, after Tianyang left the arena and walked to another place to sit, Elder Lin recovered from his shock and took a deep look at Tianyang. He did not expect Tianyang to not only perform well in the foundation assessment, but he also did not show any signs of weakness. In this battle, there was not the slightest bit of weakness. In fact, there was an unprecedented strength. Bai Lu, who was ranked 8th in the outer sect, could be said to be a super genius among the outer sect disciples of the Lingyun sect. His strength was also extremely strong. However, he could not last more than a few rounds against Tianyang. Even the most profound martial skill that he had mastered, the Raging Flame Fist, could not move him in the slightest. Such a person was simply too terrifying. If it weren't for those years of being a good-for-nothing, I'm afraid that Tianyang wouldn't have such a deep and steady temperament. Every sip and every bite is determined by the heavens. I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse for Tianyang. Elder Lin sighed softly. Then he looked at the battle in the field. However, with the previous battle between Tianyang and Bai Lu, which overturned their worldview, although the following 4th battle was just as exciting, it inevitably felt a little boring. It was the same for the next few battles. Tianyang, on the other hand, was sitting in his seat, pondering over this battle. The rank of the Raging Flame Fist far surpasses the tiger-roaring mountain forest and has already reached the low Xian level, although it is not considered outstanding among the low Xian level martial skills. However, the Bai family's power in the Arctic state is not as strong as the Tian family. However, I have never heard of this body's existence since I was young. Even when the spiral meridians were not revealed and I was still a genius, I did not come into contact with it. It seems that after this body's father passed away, the Tian family's power has begun to be mixed. Tianyang grinned, then raised his head and looked at the battle in the field. No matter how the Tian family's power is, what does it matter? If they really wanted to stop Tianyang's progress, then he would just kill them. After that, all the battles in the first round ended. Other than Bai Lu's crushing defeat at the hands of Tianyang, which shocked everyone, the rest of the battles were not too surprising. Other than Lu Fei's victory over the original 10th place, the rest of the battles were within reason. After a short rest, Elder Lin announced the start of the 2nd round. After all, it was just a battle between body refinement realm cultivators. No matter how intense it was, no matter how many trump cards were used, it was impossible to cause such a spectacular scene. Most of the fights ended within a few dozen rounds, which was around 10 minutes. If that was the case, it would be possible to finish the basic assessment and the arena martial arts assessment within the day. In the first round, to everyone's surprise, Ling Yuhan was the first to go up. Although his opponent was ranked 7th in the outer sect, he wasn't much stronger than Bai Xiang. In just a few short rounds, he was found to be weak and defeated with a single punch. In the second round, the second place in the outer sect was taken away by Ling Yuhan. His green robe fluttered in the wind like a gentleman. His name was Lu Hanqi. It seemed like a woman's name, but in fact, it was a man's name. Therefore, Tianyang was a little surprised when he heard it. Lu Hanqi's opponent was also the 9th place in the outer sect. He was slightly stronger than Bai Lu. After all, Bai Lu's left hand was not crippled in the previous ranking. Lu Fei would probably be able to fight him for 300 rounds. However, no one knew about this. In the battle with Tianyang, Bai Lu had only used his right hand to attack. His left hand was used as a decoration. In the later rounds, the truth of his left hand being crippled would naturally be exposed. Unfortunately, this person who dared to challenge the Emperor met the Emperor in the first round after being hit by Tianyang's 6 Hidden Forces Tongming fist. Bai Lu's entire body was probably crippled. As for his left hand being crippled, it did not matter. After all, his entire body was the same. Who will be able to tell? Second round, 4th match, Tianyang, Wu Mingshi. Elder Lin shouted after drawing 2 lots from the drawing box and glancing at them. When they heard this, Tianyang and Wu Mingshi stood up at the same time. They looked at each other and walked up to the stage. Tianyang naturally had an indifferent look on his face. Among the outer sect disciples, even the number 1 outer sect disciple, Ling Yuhan, might not be a match for his sword. Although this Wu Mingshi was said to be the 4th outer sect disciple, he was still a little weak. Wu Mingshi, on the other hand, had a grave expression on his face. Tianyang had dealt with Bai Lu in a clean and efficient manner, which had made him feel a great deal of pressure. Although his strength was far superior to Bai Lu's, Wu Mingshi still felt a great deal of pressure. Although he was much stronger than Bai Lu, he would not be able to deal with him as easily as Tianyang. Bai Lu was just a person who relied on his talent to throw his weight around. He could only be arrogant for a while. Even if Tianyang defeated him, it would not prove anything. However, Wu Mingshi is different. He is ranked 4th in the outer sect. He is the real deal. He is at the peak of the 8th level of the body refinement realm. He can compete with the top 3. Therefore, Tianyang will definitely be beaten up by Wu Mingshi this time. The group of people who had been slapped in the face by Tianyang were now looking at Tianyang with jealousy and hatred. In their opinion, once a piece of trash, he would always be a piece of trash. He would always be bullied by them. Now, Tianyang had succeeded in rising, and they had become the ones who were beaten up by trash. This was extremely difficult for them to accept. In the arena, Tianyang and Wu Mingshi did not care about the words around them. Instead, they looked at their opponents in front of them. Their expressions became slightly more serious, and the true yuan in their bodies began to slowly circulate. After looking at each other, Tianyang and Wu Mingshi entered a state of battle preparation at the same time. They stared at each other's every move. If there was any movement, they could ensure that they would be able to react in time. Wu Mingshi looked as if he was facing a great enemy. Tianyang, on the other hand, was slightly more serious. After all, if he really beat up the entire arena, it would not be good if he attracted the attention of the Soaring Cloud sect. The matter of his rebirth was Tianyang's biggest secret. Before he grew up, Tianyang would not reveal it. The 4th match of the second round, Tianyang versus Wu Mingshi. Now begin. Chapter 52. Bang! Just as he rushed out, a terrifying impact directly exploded. The 2 fists collided fiercely. Then, they retreated like lightning. Then, they rushed out again and retreated again. This cycle repeated 3 times. Finally, Wu Mingshi was the first one who couldn't take it anymore and retreated. Wu Mingshi didn't dare to underestimate someone who could easily take care of Bai Lu. He used his best tactic right off the bat, which was high speed, high density, and high intensity continuous attacks. Of course, these 3 high attacks weren't the name of this tactic. However, this was its characteristic. In a short period of time, it exploded with the fastest, fiercest, and most ferocious attacks to finish off the opponent. Wu Mingshi looked gentle, but in reality, his attacks were fierce and domineering. However, this fierce, domineering, high-speed, high-intensity, and high-density attacks failed for the first time since he met Tianyang. All the opponents he had met before were flustered when faced with such a fierce, explosive, and high-speed attack. They couldn't form an effective defense at all. Even if they weren't much weaker than Wu Mingshi, their attack rhythm would be disrupted by this sudden burst of attacks, and they would be defeated. However, Tianyang didn't fall for this trick at all. Moreover, he seemed to be more familiar with this tactic than Wu Mingshi. During the 3 consecutive bursts of attacks, Tianyang didn't panic at all. In fact, he even disrupted his attack rhythm. If it wasn't for Wu Mingshi's quick reaction, he would have been defeated within 3 rounds. Therefore, Wu Mingshi felt a chill run down his spine. Was Tianyang still human? Not only did he rise from a useless person, but even his talent and comprehension had become so terrifying. Worthy of... Wu Mingshi was about to praise Tianyang, but the moment the words left his mouth, he was stuck. Worthy of? Worthy of what? Tianyang didn't seem to have anything that could make him worthy of it. However, Tianyang only smiled when he heard this and didn't reply. Seeing this, Wu Mingshi also understood that no matter what he said, it was impossible for him to disturb Tianyang. Then, he stomped his feet on the ground, and under the effect of the reaction force, he instantly rushed out. This time, Wu Mingshi used his movement technique, which was even faster than the previous 3 exchanges. It's actually a movement technique that purely increases one's speed. Such a movement technique is rare. Looking at Wu Mingshi in surprise, Tianyang smiled and executed the dragon subduing step once again. The dragon subduing step didn't only have a single transformation. If that was the case, then it wouldn't be worthy of being a Middle-Earth rank martial art. There were heavy and steady steps that were as immovable as a mountain. There were also steps that were drifting and illusory like before. Similarly, there were also steps that allowed one to explode with the fastest speed in an instant. Circulating his true essence, Tianyang's figure also rushed out like lightning. In the blink of an eye, people could no longer see Tianyang's figure. Everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This speed was too terrifying. How did Tianyang execute it? Even if he used it, he would not be able to withstand it if he did not have a strong enough physical body. It's actually faster than my soaring wind movement technique. Seeing Tianyang suddenly disappear on the spot, Wu Mingshi's pupils contracted. He didn't know what to do with the fist that he was about to throw out. At this moment, an incomparably dangerous aura came from behind him. *T. Breaking wind palm. In a hurry, Wu Mingshi roared and suddenly blasted a palm behind him. In the next moment, Tianyang also noticed this point. Your reaction speed is not bad. Your martial art technique is also half a step to the profound rank. Not bad. It's a pity that you met me. The speed of the breaking wind palm could be considered fast among palm-type martial arts techniques. However, it was only limited to yellow rank martial arts techniques. For the Middle Earth rank dragon subduing step, it could be considered fast. Even if Tianyang hadn't cultivated it to the pinnacle, he could still easily dodge the breaking wind palm. His figure trembled and became illusory. The breaking wind palm also lost its target. At this moment, Tianyang's pupils contracted slightly. He locked onto Wu Mingshi's position and suddenly stepped forward. Boom! A loud sound was accompanied by a terrifying impact. That impact directly hit Wu Mingshi's body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, Tianyang didn't hesitate. His figure flashed and directly appeared in front of Wu Mingshi. Since he had used his true origin to injure Wu Mingshi, the next thing to do was to quickly end the battle. Although Wu Mingshi's strength was nothing to him, it was better for him to end the battle as soon as possible without exposing his strength. *T. Giant wave fist. Seeing Tianyang charging towards him, Wu Mingshi's expression changed greatly. He roared angrily and condensed his true origin in his hands. It was as if a wave was rolling, and he directly blasted it towards Tianyang. Tianyang's expression didn't change. He circulated his true origin in his fist and directly collided with the giant wave fist. Tongming fist, 3 echoes. Tongming fist, 25 echoes, actually only had 13 echoes. After all, if there were more echoes, it would take too much time. This was also the reason why Tianyang didn't change the number of hidden forces when he modified Tongming fist in his previous life. However, this didn't mean that Tianyang's 25 echoes were useless. The power of 25 echoes didn't just mean that he could explode with 25 hidden forces. It meant that Tianyang's control of the hidden forces in Tongming fist had already surpassed that of his previous life. He had reached the stage where his fist could follow his heart. The greatest characteristic was that the rigid hidden forces of Tongming fist could be merged. Although Tianyang had only exploded with 3 layers of hidden forces, in reality, these 3 echoes were no less than the original limit of 13 echoes. Boom! Giant wave fist and Tongming fist collided fiercely. In the next moment, the color on Wu Mingshi's face quickly faded. Together with his true origin, it was directly swallowed up by this collision. 3 layers of hidden forces exploded at this moment. All the strength in Wu Mingshi's body was completely exhausted in this collision. He staggered back a few steps and spat out a mouthful of blood. He directly fell to the ground and lost the ability to fight. So strong. I've lost this round. Wu Mingshi said these words with difficulty. Then he fell to the ground. Seeing this, everyone was shocked once again. Bai Lu, who was ranked 8th in the Outer Disciples, lost to Tianyang. It was pardonable. After all, his strength wasn't considered too strong. However, Wu Mingshi was ranked 4th in the Outer Disciples. Even such a genius lost to Tianyang. Didn't this mean that Tianyang was once a good-for-nothing?